live, but judging by last week, I've no real idea. We do have that 5 minutes, don't we, recorded somewhere. So, fingers crossed, Michael give me the thumbs up at some point. Nothing yet. Oh, and I am live. Good evening to you. You remember that thing, Mike? Don't mention the war. Yet don't mention the football. Bad words were said. But hello to each and every one of you. So now I'm in, I can actually make the chat bigger so I can see things, which is grand. Excellent. Oh, there is so many of you in the chat. Right, well, hello to each and every one of you. Can't possibly name everybody, though. But I did see somebody say hello to Jammy. So hello to Jammy and Jammy's other half. Right, shall we get on? Hello, Pete. We've got Pete in as well. In fact, haven't we now got as many Petes as we've got Debs?
I think.
This is rather grand. So, let's get on with it. What are we doing tonight? I've got news for you. I have. So, fingers crossed that everything moves on and you'll enjoy it. Shall we do that and see if everything does move on? Give me a thumbs up if that has moved on, Mike. No, it's not moved on. No. Now it should have moved on. Excellent. This is what we've got tonight. Give or take. Give or take. This has been amended so many times. So we've got the week at MacBites headquarters. Has it been a blissfully peaceful week? Are you kidding? Is it ever? Then we've got creating report covers in Affinity Designer 2. Followed by the long and much requested Para, which is a methodology for organising files. I'm going to go beyond what the person who created Para does. I'm going to take it into things like Affinity, all the Affinity apps and beyond. So that'll be long. But at the end of it, you'll be as organised as I am. And I know that Kim hankers to be as organised as I am. Then we have the freebies, and then we're coming on to something in Affinity Publisher. Right, so let's move along. We are broadcasting in 1080p, or at least I hope we are. So make sure that you are watching in 1080p, and the same holds good if you are watching on demand later. There is a cog in the lower right-hand corner. It's near the like button. That is where you will find the 1080p. Right, next, something that wasn't actually on the running order. But I could make you wait till the end, but that would just be cruel, so I'm not going to. We're going to start with what's coming up. Not tonight, but shortly. I know you love Affinity Publisher too. I know you want to see it on the iPad, which is why... Oh, I need a drum roll. I need a drum roll. Thank you, Mike. Or chicken, one or the other. Wednesday. I know it's an odd night. I'm trying to work around the World Cup, but you know, we started, didn't we, Mike? And it was, we're in Group B. So the winners of Group B are playing on Saturday. That's all right. We can go on Sunday. And then after today, it was like, well, they might not even be in the next round. But Wednesday is when it's at. Wednesday. So 8 o'clock our time means it's noon Pacific time and 3 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully you'll be able to join us. What you could do before then is watch the on-demand version for the desktop one. That would be a good idea. And if you want all the links, the fastest way, you need to go to elainegiles.com/VIP, where you can sign up to my newsletter and you will get all those details as soon as. Right. Oh, Dale says, I organise on the fly and can't find anything. It's going to be life-changing then. But I bet everybody's opinion who's never tried it will be like, that won't work. But just try it. Keep the faith and try it. So, the week at MacBites headquarters. Not peaceful. No. An average week, really, to be honest. If you remember, you left your intrepid heroes last week at the mercy of the gas man, who had by that stage already come. If you did not listen to that song, you need to go and listen to that song. And do you know what I got after I got offered that song, Mike?
No.
Another one, only it wasn't the gas man cometh, it was the BT man cometh, and I just cried for 5 minutes listening to it. It was hysterical. So, Saturday, the gas man cometh part 3. Mike was up bright and early and ready for him. Me? No. Trust me, it was best all round that I didn't. It was also best all round that I only saw these photographs after the event. Lola was out early inspecting her territory. They'd certainly done a number on it. And if we thought, because that's our garden, That's not our car. That's a long story. That's the idiot across the road who insists on parking it there. But that is our garden and our lamppost. So that is therefore our gas piping, isn't it? But if we thought we had a lot of gas piping, the neighbours had it worse. I can't even imagine what they were doing with that lot. But everywhere we turned, that's Lola's corner, isn't it? That is the very spot where Mike met Lola for the first time when she was a few weeks old. And it's everywhere. Literally everywhere we turn. Lola was quite interested in that digger. Wanted to bring that home. But honestly, it's as far as the eye can see. There's just craters. How anybody is managing on the pavement is totally beyond me. That's outside our garden gate. There's another idiot car that shouldn't be parked there, but that's another story. Lola was contemplating dragging everything that she found home. Literally everything. She had a bit of room on the pavement there. They obviously missed that bit. The wheelbarrow, saga of the wheelbarrow. No, still not worked out how the wheelbarrow worked at this point. And as you can see, literally there is 3 inches on the pavement. But that was all before they arrived. They told Mike they'd be getting to us early. However, much later. Much later. So much later, in fact, even I was up. So we're talking late. Off went the gas again. Now, I'm prepared to admit it was a little chilly with no heat, but then it is November in the UK. However, later still, we were excited by this stage, the engineer arrived. Now, the engineer's job was to turn it all back on. So once he'd been, that was it. We haven't had anybody in the house for about 15 years. I'm not used to people wanting to come in. But the engineer arrived. I know you're thinking, yeah, with the gas. No, it wasn't the gas. No. We had requested, which we're able to do apparently, that they wear masks. And the calamity was, he told us he couldn't wear a mask. Physically couldn't wear a mask. Because he had asthma. Which, that's fair enough. He had to request a second engineer. The second engineer arrived. He didn't have a mask either, but it's all right, we had plenty. So all was well. He tinkered around. He talked to you, didn't he? From a distance, obviously, safe distance. And the gas was turned back on. Which was when, as in engineer number 2 left the building, Mike spotted engineer number 1. This was Asthma Man. Leaning on our gatepost, smoking a cigarette. Couldn't breathe through a paper mask, but apparently perfectly able to consume a woodbine.
Next to the sign that said no smoking.
I was just going to say, gas mains, open gas mains. I could tell you what I said, but words like that would get us taken off air. So, finally, the gas man goeth. Thank the Lord. The celebrations went on all night. Having said that, for now, they finished coming inside, but the outside still looks like this. Have you noticed they've added to our food collection as well? There's a Starbucks there, or a Nero.
Oh, yeah.
There is, yeah. And everywhere we turn still looks like this. You'll notice, or the sharp-eyed amongst you will, wheelbarrow, upright, content in it. And as if you wanted to come to our house, you can forget it. They blocked the road entirely and then parked. They left it like that. But don't worry. Lola is out and on the job. She did get her head between those 2 barriers. Mike missed it, sadly, with the camera. But he had to pull her back because she was intent on diving in head first. She's now been promoted. Chief supervisor has also become stock control. That's all the rubbish that they've left behind. But she's checked it. And that is where we're at. And the house in the distance on the left, that's us. That is us. So the window, let's move the mouse. The window there, that window, that's where we are right now. So just imagine us leaning out and waving, and that's where we're at. Oh, Saturday was grand. Never again. Never again. Sunday had to be better though, didn't it? Because the World Cup started, and you know how crazy we are about football. It was okay, wasn't it? BBC didn't take the opening ceremony out, far too political. But what else could go wrong that day? Nothing, because the gas men weren't working. But Tesco's were coming. Eggs are still a drama, but it got much worse for Lola. Who knows what that is? Mike will know what that is. Don't say. I know what that is. That's a rare delicacy. It was Maya's favourite. It's called Hazlitt, and it's a pork meatloaf with herbs, originating from Lincolnshire. It was Maya's biggest favourite, so we thought we'd see if Lola liked it. The answer to which was du bears. So we ordered her some more. Now, to be honest, Tesco's version doesn't exactly look anything like as appetising as that. Nothing I like it appetising, to be honest. But since Lola isn't looking at the packaging, it should have been fine. Except they needed to substitute it. Lola started dreaming. I mean, she wasn't worried. How bad could it be? In her mind, there was a possibility it could have been even better. Until the replacement arrived. Yes, it was all a bit sad panda. Brace yourselves. That's not the same, is it, Mike? Corned beef is not the same as Hazlitt, not to mention the fact it was in a tin. Ripping open a packet's one thing, but expecting her to open a tin with a key, taking it too far for Lola. Lola's no longer talking to Tesco, she's disgusted. So she'll be persuading you to try Asda soon, won't she? Which took us on to Monday. Monday was going to be a big day. We'd even booked time off. England were playing in the World Cup. We had grand hopes this year. Stop sniggering at the back. Grand hopes because, our team had done pretty well. Winning games 10-0 for crying out loud. Yeah. So there we were, all ready to watch the World Cup. I will say it was stupidly kick-off time in the middle of the working day, which doesn't bother me, but it did bother Mike. But it ended up all right. It was all right. It was 6-2. But bad words were said. Now, not about the match. Well, not until the end, anyway. No, this was worse than that. The iPlayer. The BBC iPlayer. I've never known the iPlayer go down. Until we kicked off. And then it went down. Some people were seeing that message. Mine was slightly different. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter what message you got. You weren't watching the game. That was mine. You'll notice in the middle it says no network connection. But we'll just take a quick look in the corner. There was nothing wrong with my network, I can assure you. So I did the Googles. Oh, yeah. It was true. Bang on kick-off time. Down it went. The messages were all randomly different, but all led to the same conclusion. You weren't watching the match. That's down detector. You can see 1 o'clock. Off it went. So I did manage to get it in a browser. I couldn't get it on a device. I couldn't even log in. But I did get it in a browser. So all wasn't lost. Until the dodgiest VAR I've ever seen. So I think, VAR, video assistant referee, he was assisting the other team. But as I say, never mind. It was all right. But it would have been far better if it had been 6-1 and not 6-2. So I decided on Tuesday, after the excitement and palaver, that I needed a rest. So I watched all 4 matches. Yeah, funnily enough, the iPlayer didn't go down. Amazing, that, isn't it? I should be demanding a refund on my licence fee. But bizarrely for me, because I don't watch the TV, but I think it was a case of there's a game on. And now there's another game on. And then there was the news, and I actually watched the news. And then between matches, they stuck something on called Tokyo Vice. Never even heard of it, but quite enjoyed it. The only problem with that was I couldn't do anything else while I was watching it because half of it was in Japanese. But apart from that, it was quite enjoyable. Which took me to Wednesday. I know what you're thinking. Yes, it was more football on Wednesday. Couldn't believe it on Wednesday. Japan beat Germany. Now, that's a huge upset. So it's completely unheard of. Commiserations if you're a German supporter. We feel your pain. England haven't won anything for absolutely years, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. By Thursday, we were back to tech. Affinity publisher for iPad won its first award. I mean, literally, it's been out 2 and a bit weeks. And it won the Stuff Gadget Award. That's the iPad version. So amazing news for Affinity. And of course, it was Thursday. It was Thanksgiving Thursday. So if you were celebrating, happy Thanksgiving to you. I sent Mike out intrepidly today to update us on the current gas status. they've been working hard this week, obviously not during the football, but progress has been made. We now only have a tiny hole. The gas main is under there somewhere, and there's a little bit to fill in. So not too bad there at all. The other end, little bit of a bigger hole. Not at all sure they've got any flagstones to put back, but fingers crossed at some point it will happen. And after last week, when you demanded that Chicken is in the house, Chicken is in the house. Are you ready? He's there. So, with Chicken in place, I think we're all ready to go. Has it been a busy week? You'll notice I didn't mention the football tonight. The presentation was already done. It was a 0-0 draw. It was a total embarrassment for England. Congratulations to the US. Now we've got to win on Tuesday. And wasn't it something about we can't lose 4-0 to Wales?
I think so.
Or we're out. So now it's not a case of like sit down and enjoy the football. Now it's a case of sit down and give Mike the numbers and he'll crunch the spreadsheet and let you know what needs to happen. So I firmly predict a 4-0 victory for Wales next Tuesday. But we've got Chicken, so we don't care. So let's move on and look at report covers in Affinity Designer 2. Why are we looking at report covers in Affinity Designer 2? If you know why that might be happening this week, put it in the chat and then Mike can let me know if anybody guesses right. But let's go and have a look at Affinity Designer 2. So let's get it running. Right, first thing is to look at what I'm trying to create or replace. It is opening, it's just opening on the wrong thing. Right, there is the file new dialog box. Right. Oh, I've got a question there. Pete is trying to create a custom personal organiser in Publisher 2, trying to come up with a decent design that you can print as a gift. Oh, Pete, that's a good idea. Well, there's plenty of videos on YouTube. I have covered right up to mail merging it. And everything that's there works in version 2. Okay. Right, so, new document. Before I even create the new document, we need to see why I'm creating it. Has anybody guessed right yet? Do we have a no on that, Mike? I think he's dropped off his twig.
No. Carol says the squeak just woke up Finn.
We do like to wake up everybody's pets. Make sure you're all awake. Okay, right. I'm going to open a Word file. I know, don't run away. This Word file was the one that we briefly looked at when we looked at full page cover designs. So it's coming, it's coming. It's verifying Word at the moment. Where have you gone? Tell me you've opened somewhere, anywhere, doesn't matter, you know, any screen. Preferably in my lifetime. Oh, let's go. Oh, there you go. Right. So it was this one that we very briefly looked at. Right, let's take it full screen. And then let's take it down a little bit. So we have this file. It is a quick guide to functions. Or it was at some point. Mike kept confusing me. But that's what he'd done. This image is a standard image. Not all of it is on that cover page. And we discussed it last week and said the issue was here that you can't do anything with blend modes in Word. And all of this had to be in there. So this has got transparency on it. So I was charged with creating a cover for this that was better than that one. All of the content is already in here. The wisdom of having it in Word is totally beyond me, but you know, I would say that's what Mike knows. Do you know Word? It's not your favourite, is it?
Of a fashion.
It's not his favourite. So I was charged with doing that. That's the cover we're trying to replace. So I could have started by downloading this image, but I think if I move it, you can see how much of it is off screen. So the problem with that image for this cover is there isn't any negative space whatsoever. You could, of course, scoot it down in size and generally fiddle with it, but if you look at it, there's no negative space at all, which is why Mike has put this across the top of it. But I thought I would have a look round and see, do we have any files with more negative space? So I started completely from scratch. So we're in the new dialog box, which has been doing weird things to me, and it may have been doing weird things to you. What should happen in here? You have your account at the top and you've got new. And new are where your presets are saved. You can open files from in here. You can look at recent files. Your templates are in there, and there's some samples. So if you want to reverse engineer something rather snazzy, I don't think I've ever done that, but you can do that too. But I wanted something that was new, and what's been happening to me is it should remember the last size that I requested. And although it was selected over here and said A4, and that A4 is coming from my print collection, not my press ready. I would need it if I'm printing it myself or I'm making a PDF of it to be RGB, which this is. But if I choose press ready, then that will change to CMYK, and that's not what I want. So this one I use really frequently. But I've noticed when I went into it, sometimes it says letter, sometimes it's got the star on it indicating there's some changes. So that may be happening to you. You can just click back on it and that will reset any changes that were in there, but I'm not really sure why there were changes in there. And certainly not letter. I have never used letter size in my entire life, and it's coming up and telling me it's letter size. So be careful when you're using this. So I do want it portrait, which is up here. Heaven knows why, but it is. And that will flick it round for you. Then in the layout, I do want to create an artboard. Sometimes I leave that until a later state, but you might as well create it at this point because I know I'm going to need one. I always have my images set to embedded. If I don't, and I move the images, the link between them is broken. You can reconnect it. You have the resource manager for doing that with, but it's another job. And with this, I started off with the idea that I would only be having one image in it, so it might as well be embedded. Right, the colour options I don't need to change because I've already chosen it from the print collection, which means it's RGB. Margin. Do I need a margin or not? Most of the time, if you're bringing text in, of course you need a margin of some description. But this is just a cover. I don't think I do, unless I want the title and the author to be next to a margin. And I decided, no, I just don't need it. I don't need it for this one. I'm going to put the text where it makes sense with the image to put the text based on its negative space. So I took away the margin. If I was having it printed, I would put a bleed on it. The standard bleed is 3mm, but I don't need that either. And I don't need to change the scale with it. So at that point, I am ready. You'll notice at that point that I do get this asterisk at the top, which is telling me you have made changes to that. So if this is something that I want to use repeatedly, then I could save this as a preset at this point. I will create it at that point. So I've got my one artboard and that's what I'm working towards. Now, because this is going in that report, I've chosen to do it in Designer. I could, if I was going to import the text, have done it in Publisher. And obviously you've got Studio Link. You can go backwards and forwards as much as you need to. And that would include photo, which I did need to do a little bit of manipulation with. But I've just decided to do it in Designer because I've discussed it with Mike and he was, well, shall we say, not overly keen on the idea. Reticent. That's it. That's a very good word, man. He was somewhat reticent. He was. He was somewhat reticent about moving it to Affinity Publisher because of the style situation. But he's got another one to create. And I've got a big stick. So we'll see how that works out. But with this one, we had the original image that he was working with. I went off and I had a look for some other images. And one of the images that I came up with that I thought was perfect for functions, although that changed down the line, was that one. Now, obviously, it's perfect in terms of, plus, minus, divide, multiply. Excellent. There's lots of negative space for me to put the text on, so I don't have to put the text over the top of the image. So I was quite taken with that one. But as you can see, it's landscape, not portrait. Is that a problem? I would say with this one, no. And given the quality that I could download this in, I can't remember if I put the links in, but they're all at Envato Elements. I picked that one. So all I need to do with that is drag and drop it in. Now, size-wise, as you can see, it's not quite tall enough, but we can work with it. So the first step with this was to just make it the right height. This is going to be for digital distribution, so quality-wise, I was absolutely fine. No issues at all, even stretching it a bit. Right, if I bump that up to the right-hand margin, you can see I get the negative space on the right. I didn't think that looked right. So luckily, I have lots of spare pixels on the left. I decided to move that, and that somehow looked much better as far as I was concerned. So a tiny margin of space on the right hand side, and obviously there's lots overhanging. You could leave it like that. I need to put text on top of this, but you could leave it like that. When you move away from it, so you deselect, you can't see the rest anyway because it's on an artboard. You could, with the image selected, lock it as well, and that would mean that you could move around here and add extra bits on and not have to worry about it. Just for best practice, I do like to crop it. If something is hanging off the artboard, I don't want to stumble back on this later and think, why is that out by a pixel, which has happened. So I like to crop it, and we have a crop tool. We have the vector crop tool, which is over here. And that changes the corners and it puts handles in the middle. And I am just going to scoot that in, and it actually twangs. As long as you've got your snapping turned on, which is up here in the menu bar, at the toolbar, it will snap. But this is something that I do all the time. And for reasons best known to themselves, they do not have a default shortcut key for the crop tool. I use the crop tool 1,000,000 times a day. So I wanted it to have a shortcut key. The C key is already used by something else. Let's have a look. The corner tool. Never use the corner tool. But I didn't want to change it. I didn't want to say, well, the corner tool doesn't need a shortcut because I'm never going to use it, because I have to train this app. So I need it leaving as normal as possible, but I like to enhance it with the things that I use. So I thought, what other shortcut keys are available? Because each of these tends to have a shortcut key of some description. So if we hover over there, the artistic text tool is a T, and the colour picker is an I for eyedropper. Measure tool doesn't have one, the zoom tool is Z. So I needed to find a shortcut key that was free, and then I needed to allocate it to it. So I thought I'd show you that, because as far as I'm concerned, cropping is just good practice. I see Renee says he always does that as well. It helps future you. You come back. Now, the only thing to remember is, if you've cropped an image and you think, oh, that's not bad, but I really need more space on the right, do check if you've cropped it, because you've then actually hidden those pixels. But it's worth it to me. So Command and comma takes us into the preferences, of which there's acres of them. And we have shortcuts. Now, the shortcuts aren't as simple as they should be, because they're grouped. So we have the designer persona, the pixel persona, and the export persona. So if you're trying to set a key, make sure you've got the correct persona selected. So this would be in the designer persona. And then underneath that, you have all of the menus that you've got. So file, edit, text, layer, and so forth. Obviously, this is a tool. So down here you have individual tools, but you also have tools. So if I click on that, you can see in here, there's the artistic text tool, and that was set to T. There was the colour picker, that was set to I, and the corner tool was set to C. If I wanted C to be crop instead, I could click the cross and then go and put C for the crop tool. But I didn't want to do that, because then I would forget that the default wasn't what I was using, and I would be lying to people when I said it was. So I needed to go down to the, where's me, where is it? Vector crop, I think it's under V, isn't it? Here we go. So there's the vector crop tool. And you can see that R was free. And I thought, I can remember that. It's the second letter. So all I did when I first went into this, it looked like that. There was nothing there. I clicked in it, I pressed R, that's it, I'm done. So if you wanted to do that, now you're not in the same position I am where you're training people one day and then you're using a different set the next day. So I needed to find, I couldn't really swap the corner tool, but you could if you wanted to. So you could have crazy shortcuts that make sense to you. Maybe you're coming from another app, Illustrator, CorelDRAW, and you just want that transition to be made a bit easier. Even if I think I'd learn the proper shortcut keys, because it's a nightmare to make sure you're using the right keys. What I will say is, and we may come back to this later, in fact I'll create the file now and then we can use it later. Once you've made changes like that, you do have the option to save them or load them in from somewhere else. So I could say, save these, and these are my shortcuts. So that says Affinity shortcut. It's actually designer as far as I'm concerned. So if I just go in there and put designer, shortcuts, plural, and we save that on the desktop, and I will show you what I will do with that later. It just means if I move to another machine, I do not want to sit there with screenshots trying to match them up. I want to just load them in, and I can do it with that. Which means, at the moment, I've got the move tool, but I just need to press the R key, and it takes me in to my vector crop mode. And then I can scoop that down on the other side, and then press the V to come out of it. So learning a few shortcut keys, really useful. The other option you've got, and the shortcut keys do come into play with that, you could use something like an Elgato Stream Deck, and you could have the tools on there. So with your left hand, if you're right-handed, you got your right hand on your trackpad or your mouse, and your left hand activating the tools. You know, it saves a few seconds, but it all adds up. So we have our background. At that point, I am not wanting to move that or do anything else with that, so I would lock it. Right, now I need my text, don't I? So I need to know what on earth this thing's called, which I thought I did have at some point. Right. This one was going to be functions, wasn't it? And then you changed your mind. Right, but I'll get some text on anyway. So put some text on here. It was at one point functions, and it was a quick guide to Excel functions in Excel. But why would it say Excel functions in Excel? No, it didn't say Excel functions, it said functions. I'm just putting it in twice. What can I say? I've had a stressful week. Right, then I need to format this. So obviously that colour's not going to work. It needs to maybe be white. It also needs to look better than that. Did you have a font? Did you want to use Poppins? Oh, you ask a difficult question.
Verdana.
Are you serious? Like I said, Poppins.
All right, Poppins.
Poppins is Mike's font. Inadvertently. You didn't go looking for Poppins, did you?
It found me.
Poppins found Mike on Canva. So Poppins is here. Poppins is quite popular. I like Poppins. Right, all you need to think about here is you're going to have it bigger than that, and how do you want it broken up? Probably not like that.
Don't ask me questions like that.
Exactly, so I'll deal with that. If you're going to do that, you might decide to have the to and in on a different line and then maybe change the size. I'd probably put it together like that and then make the whole thing a bit bigger. That fits nicely around the top block. So it looks like it was all designed that way, doesn't it? Right, I would move that to about there. At that point, I was thinking to myself, it's not bad, but it's actually quite light in the top corner. So I could do with making it a bit darker, and you've got a few options for that. If the image is incredibly light, then one thing you could do is duplicate your image. Initially, obviously, that makes no difference at all. You just have one copy of it sat on top of the other. But you do, with your blend modes, get the opportunity to multiply them and to burn them and make them much, much darker. So that's one option. Darken won't do anything. That just shows you the darkest pixels. But multiply takes the two values and multiplies them. That looks quite nice for the background, but the blocks are far too dark. So sometimes that's a viable option for you. In this circumstance, not really. And I only really want it darker in the top corner. So I had a ponder. Right. I don't want to do that. Don't want to make it black and white. But what I decided I would do is put on here over the top of it just a shape. Now there's no fill on that shape at the moment. There is an outline which we'll get rid of, but there's no fill. So if I just put that, make that really dark, you can see now the text stands out, can't see anything else. Mike's favourite trick is to change the opacity. In fact, you're a one-trick pony, aren't you? Changing the opacity is the only thing he ever does.
Giving all my secrets away now.
But when you do that, it now makes it muddy on the shapes. So while that would work for the text, it doesn't do a thing for the shapes. So we have this thing here. There's two tools that you could think about playing with for this. One is the fill tool, the gradient. You could apply a gradient to that. But this other one that looks like a glass, there you go, a wine glass, unwind on a Friday night. That's the transparency tool. So if I start up here and drag that down, where are we going? Where have you gone? You've moved. Right, if I drag that down, you can see it's not touching the shapes at all, but as I bring it down, it's darker in the top. So what it's doing is it's taking the colour of the fill, which was black, and the other end is transparent. And you can pull that as far as you want. You can pull it in any direction you want. So if you want it from that side, from the left-hand side. But I think down there, that's not bad at all. Now, if it's a bit where you can see it, it's a little bit too sharp, you can move this. So you can take that down. I mean, you don't want that. You don't want it that close at all. But I could take it back a little bit, just off centre, and just move it a bit. So I'm getting it dark up here by dragging it back to the left. If you didn't know that I had done that, it looks fairly natural. So let's toggle it on and off. It does make enough of a difference to make it worthwhile. So off and on again. Right, there's only one more thing that actually needs now. And luckily there is more negative space at the bottom. So I will take this and make a copy of it. So I'm holding the Option key down. I don't need it that big. So possibly around the 30 mark. And this is just going to be the author's name. So let's put Mike on there. But that one at the moment is left aligned. So if I do change the size or play around with it, it would make sense to have it lined up to there. So let's drag that down to about there and right align it. And then if I do make any changes or I add anything to it, it will move in the right way. Another option for that is to make sure that it's got the same space as this, but I think it's better if this is lined up to the box itself. Right, at that point, that was when Mike decided he was going to change the title. He liked the image for this one so much that he said it would be better that it wasn't functions if it was formula. Has anybody guessed yet why I'm doing this week? When I could be crying into my beer over the football. Right. It's because it's the 1st of December on Thursday. And I know many of you have been around long enough to know that that means MacBites Advent Calendar. So let's just say that this will be winging its way to your inbox at some point in December. So he changed the name and that became a quick guide to formula in Excel, which was important at that point because that meant I'd created a cover. It was in a file called A Quick Guide to Functions. And he'd changed his mind. Yeah, bad words were said. I ended up with 2 covers in a single file. But the way that I did it, I wouldn't recommend. So I am going to put 2 covers in this file, but I'm going to do it properly rather than fiddly, because the way I did it was fiddly. So at this point, knowing that I now need to create, and this is how my jobs go. You've got one job to do, and then all of a sudden I suddenly had 2 jobs to do. It's a matter of tidying up the file. And I know many people don't bother, but future you will thank past you. So, for instance, the artboard is called Artboard 1. This doesn't need to go out to a website, or it doesn't at this point, but I would still name it in a way that it could do without me having to rename it. So I would be putting in the dashes. So a quick guide, all the dashes to formula. Oh, how am I spelling formula? In Excel. Right. Because the artboard name is what's used in the export. You can export it to different sizes and different formats, but the best way to have consistency in your file is to name your artboard what you want it exported as. You can save this file and call it whatever you like. So if I actually do save this file now and just call it covers, that's fine. The name of the file is not the important thing. It's what the artboard is called. Right, this is the background image, and this that just says rectangle is the gradient. So it would be a good idea to call it gradient and group the two together, and then name the group background. Future me is going to love past me. That only leaves two other elements, which is the title and the author. And I know all of the Affinity apps do this the wrong way round as far as I'm concerned. That's higher up over here, so I would want the layers to represent that. With these, I could group them. It could be like the text. It doesn't really matter whether I do or not because there's very little else with it. But let's group it. Let's group that and call that title and author. Right. There's only one more thing that I need to do with that to have it ready to export. In fact, I might not even need to do that. I would need to know where it was going. If it's going in Affinity Publisher, put it in as it is. That way it remains editable. But if it's going into Word, it's going to need exporting. So we need the export persona. All I'm going to do in the export persona is check that all the right things are ready to be exported. So at the moment, the default is, you can look at the size at the top here, the default is a PNG. And I probably wouldn't want it as a PNG. I mean, it would be very compatible, but I might want that as a PDF. If I want to make sure that I've got both, then I'll just add a PDF as one of the options. Now, you will notice here that you have all of these options, and these are all built in. So your PDF options are here. Do not be tempted for quality to think I'll go for press ready, that'll be the best quality. It will, and what else will it do? If you go for press ready, it will convert your output into CMYK, and it'll totally change all of the colours, so don't do that. But you do have an option for print. However, right down at the bottom, I have two settings here that you do not have, because these are custom settings that I have created. The top one is to create an SVG at 400 dpi and convert the text to curves. Why on earth do I bother with that? Well, if you've ever seen what PowerPoint can do with an SVG, you'd convert it too. I'll try and get a picture of it. I'll try and get a screen cap. Basically, it cuts Wolfie's head off, and Wolfie doesn't like it. It puts a box on Wolfie's head. Let me see if I can just go get that, because that is in Dropbox. Application support. We'll be coming on to that. And let's have a look at PowerPoint. Are you going to be good so I can show the good people this? It's having a rare old think about it, isn't it? This is next week's show. Oh, somebody's ahead of themselves. Yes, look what it does to Wolfie's head. So that's why I convert it. I want to make sure that that does not happen, or anything like it does not happen. Right, the other option I have is for PDF, and it says PDF 600, 400 plus. It's the best quality PDF I can get and keep the RGB. So it's just a custom setting. So I would choose my custom setting. Should you have custom settings? If you can get away with it, don't bother. Because when you install the new version and it helpfully says, would you like to transfer all your settings? And you say like an idiot, oh yes, please. It doesn't transfer those. So I've actually found more things it doesn't transfer than it actually does. It managed to transfer the assets and that was about it. So when I came to my templates, I'm looking in here and instead of seeing PDF 600, 400 and PNG, they're blank. And I'm like, why are these blank? And then I realised it hadn't transferred them across and I had to recreate them. So if all you're doing is basically recreating something it can already do, don't bother. Unless you're doing like me, where you want something specific, it's not worth the effort. But there they are. So I now have the PNG that I want, and I have got a PDF in case I need that too. And now I'm going back in here because we were creating one called a quick guide to functions. So at this stage, I'm like, oh, so you need two then. Mike very sheepishly said yes. So I needed to create another one. And I figured I might as well put them in the same file. Future me will think that was an idiotic thing to do, but right now it seemed like a good idea. So I need another artboard. Should I duplicate this artboard? Don't really need to. Because there's only one artboard in here, if I activate the artboard tool, it says document at the top. You get to choose the size. And I can just insert one. It will insert another artboard next to the first one, and it will be the same size as the first one. So that was fairly painless. Right, over here I'm going to fold up the artboard that was our first one, which we've named. What I can do with this is copy the name of it and name our second artboard. Instead of formula, it was functions. So that was handy. Right, so the top one is this one on the right hand side, and now I'm setting about working with that. It would make sense, if possible, to have it complement the first one. So, as I say, Mike inadvertently adopted Poppins as his font, courtesy of Canva. It is a free font if you're interested, from Google Fonts. So I'll stick to that, but I need to find something now that's more technical than building blocks. If the building blocks were the basic one, then the next one needed to be a little bit more technical. Mike wasn't sold on something that looked like E equals MC squared all over the place, were you?
No.
No, but I persuaded him, so it was fine. Okay, let's go and get the images that I had for this one. And so, this time I looked at that and I thought that would work. But the problem I had with that is there's no negative space whatsoever. So what do you do when there's no negative space? And I thought, well, I'm liking that. I could erase some of it if I needed to. So, for instance, I could get rid of the graph on the left by just masking it out. I could get rid of this bit over here, and doing so, I could create negative space. But I actually thought the more you take away from that, the less it says advanced functions. But I did like that. So I needed something that I could use as the background and put that over the top of. But we will start off and we will bring that in. Now you can see it is way bigger than I need it. So one thing I'm going to do is squish it down. I think I had it filling it. So we did have all of it on. And I did have a little bit extra that we didn't need. So that means, shortcut key, all together now, R. And I can bring that in. And that's the bit of that I am working with. But obviously, background, not good. So I need to do something with it. So the first thing I thought was, it's quite dark. So if I had a black background, that would be fine, wouldn't it? So I just drew on here a shape and put it behind it. So this is our maths image and the black is behind it. And it's at that point that you realise how not black that is. Now you could try and, in fact, you'd probably need a gradient because the top edge is very different than the bottom edge. But you could pick up a colour. So pick up a colour towards the edge of it and fill it with that. And no, that's even worse. So that's not going to work. But it's fine because let's get rid of that idea. Let's lose that idea. We'll even toggle this off. What I started to do was go round the stock image site looking for a chalkboard, but with nothing on it. And amazingly, that wasn't an option. But I did find this one, which is a chalkboard. I know it's got knives and forks in it, but we don't need that. We're not going to need the right-hand edge. So that might work. So I decided to bring that on. I needed it to be the right size, so just position it wherever because you're going to move it to audition it. So pop that there. And if I move it all the way, so it's hanging off the right edge, I've got it quite dark on the left-hand side. I can move this until that point there. So I could have it there. From memory, I think I took it to that edge. I was mindful with this, and I'm not going to take the time to do it perfectly tonight because it's going to take like 10 minutes. But I will show you what I did with it. So let's say that we're happy with that position. We need the R key, custom shortcut key, take that in, and it's as if the knife and fork was never there. Right, the bit that I'm not going to take the time to completely do is when you move into it, you've got scratches on here. You've also got really sparkly white pixels. Now, what have we got here? Which one was Mike's? I think it was that one. That's what I ended up with. And if I toggle off here, this bit, no, not that bit there, you can see those spots. So how I fixed that, let's go back to the other file, was in here, I switched over to pixel persona and I used the tools here to fix it. So literally just went over it and fixed it. You could hand this file off, or if you'd started in Publisher, you could use Studio Link. And what I did was I fixed each and every bit of it. But this is a good one for future you. If I ever wanted to use this again, I would have this starting point image in Eagle, which is where I organise my images. But it would actually make a lot more sense to make a version of it that's fixed. So what you didn't notice was when I was in here and this was selected, I just quickly copied it. And if I go into here and I paste it, it fixes it because it's the same image. What I would do is I would take the time, and you never have the time. Mike wanted one, then he wanted two. I'm trying to get on. But take the time and fix the image and then save the image as the edited copy. If you have used it before and you haven't gone through that edit process, then do what I've just done. Take the repairs from one file and put them into the other. And that it does make such a difference to that. Doesn't look like it does, but it does. Right, and then we've got our formula, which is now behind that. So we need to bring that to the front and we need to turn it on. And we've got all kinds of problems because the repairs are in front of it, not behind it. So let's pop that behind it. And we'll take the repairs and the silverware in the jar and group those together. Because if we make any changes to that, we want to make it to both of them. Right, doing quite nicely at this point, but this isn't matching very well. It's not bad, but you can tell the difference between the two chalkboards and you can tell the difference between the colours. So we need to play with a blend mode here and see which blend mode we could use. It would make sense before we even start looking at the blend modes to think, what is it we're trying to do? What do we want to retain from the image with the formula on? And that is the white parts. The black parts aren't as important. So if we select it and go to the blend modes, darken won't do us any good. It will keep the dark pixels. And all of these are going to make it darker. But lighten, that's pretty useful because what's happened is you can see through it, particularly at the bottom. So if we look at that, you can't see the edge. But if we take lighten off, you can see the harsh edge. So lighten is making a big difference. So down to lighten. So at the bottom, that's fine. It's keeping the text, it's losing the dark bit. At the top, not quite so good. So we need to work on the top. The easiest way with that is, have we got a mask on that at the moment? Let me have a look where we are. No, we're fine. Right. So what I would do with that is mask some of it out again. Right, let's show handing this off. I'm going to go and make some changes. So just because we can. So in File, I'm going to say Edit in Photo. And it opens up Photo. Hopefully it's version 2. It's having a rare old think about it. It closes the file in Designer and it opens it up in Photo. And then you've got your entire range of tools to work with. So in here, it's really this top edge that I need to be thinking about. So I'm going to put in a new layer. So this layer is sitting above the formula layer. I do take the time and I do call this repairs. In this case, it would actually be masking it rather than repairs. So mask the top edge. And what I'm after doing here is, where's my brush tool? There's the brush tool. And what I need to do there is make sure I am in the right place, which is on this mask. Make that a bit bigger. And hopefully that's going to work. So, are you going from this layer? What's happening here? Ooh. Hardness 0, that's right. So it's right so far. Paintbrush tool. What colour's that? Doesn't look bad. Let's have a look. In fact, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm not going to put it on a layer because it's not actually a repair. What I'm going to do with it is actually put a mask layer on it. Here. Which means... let's get that back to the defaults. Hopefully that should work better. Am I on the right one? Am I on the right one? Looks like I'm on the right one. And let's have a look at that. Right. So what I'm doing is drawing on it. Not drawing on the image. I am drawing on the mask. And as I do this, it's masking it off. Now, I don't want to get too close to that, but I could take this down here. This is why I want the hardness at 0. I want it to be quite soft as it goes around these bits here. So to make it a bit bigger and do the same thing and get rid of these light pixels. Now with this image, it's actually a whole lot easier if you just turn the background off. So we have in here the background and the background repairs. So if we toggle that off, you can actually see, and I've missed a bit there. And it's far easier to do it with the background turned off. Like that. I don't have to do anything with this edge, can if I want, but it won't make any difference because this edge is okay with what we've already done. But by taking it into Photo, you can use all of the features inside Photo. And the beauty of it is, I don't even have to actually save it. I just need to go to File and then back to Edit in Designer. And it opens it up and it comes back in here. And it even brings it in to match what was toggled on and off in the other app. So let's bring that group back on. And that is looking much better. Right, then I need to think about the text. So as I've said, because I'm in the same file, I can take this and put that on there. This one was functions. So let's put that in there. I could leave it like that because it does match the other one. And the Mike Thomas is easy to do as well. Just pop that over there. I thought it needed a little bit more breathing space. So one option is to take this down. And that would give us breathing space. The other option is to change the size of this. But with them side by side, I can see they do actually completely match at that point. So I would probably leave it at that. But I looked at it and I still wasn't happy with it. There was something that didn't seem to work that well to me. And I think it was because we think chalk is white. And obviously it is. But it's not as bright a white as this. So I decided that I would sample a light part of this. So maybe like that bit there. And change it to that. It's subtle. But it does seem to match a little bit better. So that was what I did. Right, the next thing that I needed to do was tidy up this. So this is our first one and that was tidied up. This is our background, so take the time and name it. This is the title and the author, so group that, same principle. Title and author. And this bit is part of the design, so it could actually go in the background. You could have a separate layer, or you could put it in the background. But that way, at least I can look at it and know exactly what is what. And the last step is to go back to my export. And I have covered this in version 1. There's a whole session on export. But in essence, this is a quick tip. In here, I wanted the PNG and I wanted a PDF. The PNG is a default, as you can see, but the PDF is not. And you could have in here 27 different exports. So a really quick way to work is this one's got what I want. So I click this little button in the panel, which is copy the export format to the clipboard. Click on the other one that only had one and then paste it on there. And I would if it was working, but it's obviously got a mood on itself. So let's try that again. Right, that button in the middle becomes active and I can click it. The middle button replaces any settings I had in there with the settings I've copied. The end button adds it as well as, which in this case would cause problems because the top one is the default. But now I have both of those, I can then export them. So in here, the background is just the whole thing. Very infrequently would you need the background. So you can see there's no dot in there. I don't want it included. If I wanted to export just the one on the left, I would select the bottom one and click this button. If I wanted just the one on the right, select that and click the button. If I only want a PDF, open them up, find the PDF and click the button next to the PDF. But more often than not, you're going to want all the versions of all the covers. So make sure there is a dot in the box. It should be a tick, but make sure there's a dot in the box. And then it says export 2 slices. So one's the left one, one's the right one, and you're done. So let's pop these on the desktop. And we should get 4 files. Hopefully. But then it's been that kind of week, hasn't it, mate? So we could end up with 24 files. I have no idea. It's going a bit slow. I would expect it to go faster than that, to be honest. The only time I've seen it really slow down like that is when I'm exporting SVGs, which I'm not doing at the moment. So I don't know why it's taking that long. But we'll get there. Fingers crossed. Any questions? Let's take any questions.
No, there aren't.
Oh, no, there's no questions. Right, anyway, it's finished. Okay, so I'm going to save that file. Move this down. Don't need photo. And here's our files. It's probably the size of them, but there we go. There are our files. And they will make a reappearance in our Advent calendar when they have been attached to Mike's Word file. And possibly an Affinity Publisher file, if I can get him that far. So do we have any questions about that? If we do, get them in the chat now, while I move on to the next thing, which is the much requested file management with Para. Right, we have mentioned Para before. I know we have, but it was in relation to a totally different thing. So Para is a methodology. And the last time it was mentioned, it was to do with GTD, which is getting things done. I've done a whole video on that, which is the overview of David Allen's Getting Things Done. And I particularly did it in relation to DevonThink. So before we started DevonThink, I did an entire session on getting things done. Now, as I say, Michael put the link in for that, but Getting Things Done is a framework for organising and tracking tasks and projects, but particularly tasks. And the overriding thing to come from this was not to do with managing files. This was to do with tasks and projects, and obviously projects are made up of individual tasks. The number one thing to come from this was that you need a system that tracks 100% of everything. That's critical for you to have 100% trust in your system. You do not want something dropping off the end. Because if one thing drops off the end, the bigger problem is not being able to find one file. The bigger problem is you'll just say, I don't trust the system. Could be anywhere. I don't know where it is. You won't have faith and trust in that system. So that was what we talked about with GTD. The principles of that, in terms of having 100% trust in your system, are exactly the same when it comes to managing files. So with the GTD session, I did 2 extras at the end. 2 additional frameworks that don't directly impact your getting things done system. They are extras to it. They are in addition to it. Be it that you call them frameworks, systems, methodologies, paradigms, whatever, right? These 2 extra things assist you with your tasks. Now, they both come from Tiago Forte and Building a Second Brain. If you want an overview of the entire Build a Second Brain framework, there is a book out now. So you can get that for around the $8 mark. I think it's about £8-9 in the UK. And it does cover the entire system. It's got a lot of information in it in terms of story and how he came up with what he came up with. So if what you want is the quick intro, the book does go a bit deeper than that. But the 2 things that we're looking at is code and para. And these are the 2 extra frameworks. You will hear people who have done Second Brain, also known as BASB, talk about code and talk about para. So I would start with code. Now, code is a framework for creating content. In itself, while organising your files is part of it, the framework is for creating content. It is not a framework for how to become a better squirrel. It's not, oh, I've got 9,000 million files and I want them all organised. No, it's not that. Its goal is to create output. So if you think it's all about hoarding information, you're way off. It's not about that. It's about putting information in the right place to be able to be creative with it and to create some output, whatever that output may be. And it's not prescriptive as to what output. It could be written, it could be video, it could be live streams, it could be anything. It could be a TikTok, anything, but there is an output to it. So code itself starts with capture, working on the principle that before you can output anything, you need to have some inputs. So if you think back to being a child, you can't really write a book until you can read. So capture is where you squirrel away. This is where the squirreling comes in. You go out and find anything and everything that you need, and then you bring it into your system. That's the capture part of it. Once you've got that information, you need to organise it. And it could be that at that point you discard some of it, and some of it is too good to throw away, but you're not going to use it for this particular output, in which case it needs to go somewhere else. But if you've only captured what you need, then you organise it, and the next step is to work out what you're going to do with it to create the output. So you distill the information. Now you think of distill as making it smaller, but you could distill it and make it bigger. So what I mean by that is you could see a blog post from somebody and they're talking about something and you're like, oh, that's just given me an idea. And what you create from it could be a full book, whereas originally it was like somebody's tweet or a blog post, and it just built something in you that instead of distilling it down into something smaller, you actually made it something bigger. But distill is the word we use for converting the information you've captured and organised into something that will fuel your creativity. Once you've done all of that, you then express that. Now, expression is there's some words in this that have caused consternation in the Build a Second Brain community. Some people don't like the word express, but it means create something. So, for instance, if we work on the capture part, right, Serif Affinity release version 2 of their apps. What do I need to capture? I'll need to go to their blog and I'll need to see what the new features are. I'll need to understand the licensing. So there's lots of things that I will need to capture and put in my system. Then I need to organise them. So I need to put them into an order that makes sense for a live session. I may well have far too much information, or I may not have enough. But when I come on to the distillation phase, what I need to do is turn it into something that's valuable in terms of output. So I'm thinking I'm going to leave that out. I am going to include that. When I'm going through that distillation process, I might think, what on earth did that mean? And I've got like a document and I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I go away and I then research a couple of the terms in that. And it's okay to do that during distillation. Finally, there's the expression. You pull together all the information and you put out your content. And that is code. Now, I've gone over code, even though that isn't actually para. It's one level higher than para, because if you don't understand code, you're not going to understand where para fits into it. So we have building a second brain, the methodology, at the top level. The next level down is code, where you capture, organise, distill and express. Para is part of organise. So I haven't just designed that wrong. I've moved it to the left because it's part of organise. When you've captured and you need to organise, you use the principles of para to organise. So that is what it looks like. Build a second brain, the full methodology at the top level. Within that, code to create your content. But within organise, you organise all of your content with para. So that takes us on to para. What is that? Para is another framework, but this time it's only to do with how you organise your information. So it stands for projects, areas, resources, and archives. And the rationale is that any and every file that you have can be organised into one of those 4 folders. So to deploy para in your file system, you would create 4 folders, one for each of those. And that is what that would look like. I've numbered them. They are numbered, but I've numbered them because you want them in the correct order. So you start with projects, you move on to areas, then resources, and then archives. And that is your para system. Now, as far as that goes, that would be fine. But there is an additional point to this. By organising it like that, you have organised by actionability, which means that you've got your red hot files, the ones that you're working on today, all the way through to the freezing cold ones you've not looked at for 10 years. And that is what that looks like. Your projects are where you're working today. Areas, slightly different than projects. Projects, we'll talk in terms of project, but projects are basically you're doing something, there's a series of tasks, there's an outcome, and there's a date, and then you finish it. A project comes to an end. An area does not come to an end. Resources support everything else you do. And archives cause most consternation. If it's not active, if it's not an area, and if it's not a resource, sling it in the archive. Do not try and organise the archive. Just put it in the archive. You'll find it when you need it because you'll go and search. And that is like the high level overview of that. Obviously, you're going to have questions. So let's look at an example. Let's say, we all know it's Mike's birthday in August. It's quite a way off. Let's say I've lost my mind and I decide I'm going to bake him a cake. Nobody wants that, do they, Mike? But let's say that that's what I decide to do. And it came to my mind because I saw a recipe online. So I've taken a copy of this recipe. Where does it go? Now, if you were using a standard file system, you might think, household, cookery, birthdays, And you're starting to, either you've got a file structure like that and you're trying to find the right place to put it, or you create a file structure like that thinking that that makes logical sense. But if you're using a para system, which folder should it go in? You've only got 4 to go at. So come on, you've got a 25% chance of being right here. Where would you put that? Now, the clue is not in what it is. It's in when it's useful. And it's not going to be useful. I can't bake that cake today for next August. So although at some point it might be a project, it's not a project today. Is it an area? It could be. I could have an area of relationship, in which case it could go in there. If I'm doing an entire meal for Mike, not just the cake, I could put it in resources. In the resources, I could have recipes. I could put it in there. The one place I wouldn't put it, to be honest, is archives. But any of the other 3 wouldn't be wrong, because it's not a kind of system that you can go wrong with. If you want to have that as a project, bake Mike a cake, and you want to sit looking at it for 10 months, that's up to you. Area or resource, probably. So we've got Kim with a P, Richard with an R. Oh, Pandemonium thinks archives, it's a way off. I wouldn't put it in the archive in case I didn't think of looking in there for it. But you could if it's that far off, as long as you know, but then you're back to the fact of, do you trust your system? If you trust the system, you'll be fine. Absolutely fine. So it could be any, but I would say the middle 2 are where it really belongs. And choosing between them, it's a personal choice. Do I put it in the area of relationship, or do I put it in a resource as recipes? Doesn't matter, because I'm going to find it either way. I'll think, oh, there was that cake. And instead of thinking, oh, I've got to have to go back to my browser and go through my bookmarks and see if I can find the recipe for that cake, I think it's only going to be in 1 or 2 places. It's either going to be in the relationship folder or it's going to be in the recipes folder. So, where do I have para implemented? Literally everywhere. Everywhere I could conceivably need to locate information. Notice that it's information, not just files. Information. Because information is increasingly our lifeblood, and we get it from all over the place. There's nothing more frustrating than knowing we've got a piece of information and not being able to locate it. Because if you can't find it, you might as well not have it. But there was all the time you wasted trying to find it in the first place, then you captured it, and now you've lost it. Our information is increasingly diverse. So there's your files, there's scans, there's information coming into you, increasingly from the internet, there's books, there's information from files, so data. Anything from the internet, because you want to save the entire internet, don't you? Because you know full well when you're looking for that, you'll never find it. Myriad notes, probably in just as many notes apps. Network note-taking apps, the backlinks and all that brings with it. So pretty much you're at this point. You're overwhelmed. And this is what para seeks to sort out. So deep diving into those folders now, starting with projects. A project is defined as a series of tasks linked to a goal with a deadline. So it's not an individual task, it's more than one task. Taken together, you have a deliverable, the goal. And with a deadline. Because if there's no deadline, if it goes on and on and on, it's an area, it's not a project. It must have an end. So a series of tasks linked to a goal with a deadline, and then it's finished. Where does it go when it's finished? It goes to the archive. Or is that correct? Well, it could go to the archive, but if that project is to be repeated in a year, so, your tax situation, maybe that will go into resources because you've got all the notes from this year. I do that. The first year I did my tax online was a living nightmare. I needed a 2-month extension and it wasn't my fault for a start. And in the end, you came in, didn't you? And I think Mike had left for work. So obviously it's quite a few years ago. Mike had left for work. And I was still filling this thing in when he came home. And I had like a progress bar at the top, and I said, I'm at 76%. Mike said, but you've been at that 8 hours. I said, I know. I'm just hoping it doesn't crash. The notes I took during that process would make it easier for next year. So that would be a resource. Right, Richard's saying, wouldn't that mean the 4 folders had a mess in them? No, the only one that's really going to seriously be messy is the archive, and it doesn't matter because you're going to have tools to search that. So that is projects.
I think I need to repower my paras.
You can never parry your paras too much, Mike. So your projects, people do get confused between projects and areas, but projects should be quite simple because you've finished it. You've actually finished it. Areas, on the other hand, are ongoing. So an area is an area of interest. So it could be you like to paint, or you're into photography, or maybe you're a knitter or sports. These are things that are ongoing, that you are interested in, your interests. With me, I'd be geeking out. One day Mike may have an area for learning that guitar. You never know. But it's an ongoing area of interest. So something that you've done, when it comes to a conclusion, if you decide I don't want to play the guitar anymore, you take the folder that's got all your guitar stuff in it and you move it into the archive. Simple as that. So the distinction between projects and areas is areas do not have a deadline, projects do. Then you've got the third one, which is resources. I think of resources as things that I may find useful in the future. Either for the same task, so the notes about the tax situation, got the submission down to 18 minutes the following year, thankfully. So notes about it, or tools to do the job with. So resources are something that support you in something else. So for example, when I'd done the Building a Second Brain course, had a folder with all the contents in for Building a Second Brain. What do I do with that? I finished it, so it was a project, it had an end date. Well, it's either going to go as a resource or it's going in the archives, one or the other. What I did with it was put it in the resources. Now, I'm grandfathered onto Building a Second Brain, so whenever there's a cohort, I can go. I don't pay any extra. So moving forward, I did another cohort, and that meant I had 2 folders. And I thought, right, well, the oldest one I don't need as a resource. If I'm looking for a diagram or some notes that I took, it's going to be in the latest folder. So that one needs to go into the archive, and the newest folder is my resource. If I'm looking for this diagram and I can't find it, and I think, do you know what? I think it was an older cohort. It'll just be in the archives. So go look in there. There'll be a folder and it'll say Building a Second Brain, and it'll be followed by a number, which is the cohort number, and that's it. But resources, you put something in a resource if it's more immediately useful than the archive. If it's going in the archive, you're not throwing it away. That's another thing people panic about. If I put it in the archive, it's gone. No, it hasn't. It's like putting it in the attic. You've not thrown it out. It's not going to the dump. It's going to the attic. It will be there when you need it. So that is what we're looking at. Let's see what it looks like for real, with real data, shall we? Right, so let's have Finder on here, and where shall we start with? Right, that's one lot of data. I don't think we'll use that one. I think we'll use this one. Right. Okay. So there is a Finder window. This is my Dropbox. Now, I'm not starting with cloud services, so I'm going to start with local drives. I put all my local drives on. Look at them all. Right, I've got backup drives. I've got all kinds of drives here. So we'll start with these. So there's my Scratch drive. That is a drive. It's an SSD. It is permanently attached to my computer, and it's 1 terabyte. You can see there's 800 and odd gig free. This is where I put my recordings. It's fast enough for me to edit my recordings off it. It's where my VM lives. So my virtual machine for Windows lives on this drive. It's stuff I don't want on my main hard drive. You can see my main para folders, which are here. It would probably make sense to do that, wouldn't it? But it's okay if you want to cheat and put extra folders on. So I always have an inbox, and it's always named __, which pushes it to the top of the list. And it's followed by the word inbox, and then it's followed by the name of the drive. So all my drives are identical. They all have that inbox. Why do I need an inbox? Well, without it, I have to make a decision straight away where something goes. And sometimes I haven't got the time. It's 2 minutes to 9 on a Friday night, and I've got to get rid of some files. I will put them in the inbox on one of my drives. And then I make sure every day that the inbox is empty. But I add an inbox to Para. You'll notice at the end, I have another folder, which is application support. I will explain that shortly. But other than that, I have my Para installed here. If we go down to the next drive, you can see the same principles. We've got an inbox, and it's got Extreme SSD on it. It's then got the 4 folders. It also has a 5th one, which says for transfer. So I'm not averse to adding whatever is necessary. Let's have a look if there's actually anything in there by calculating all the sizes. There is. There's 88 gig for transfer. So how did that happen? Okay. When I'm recording stuff on my main computer, I don't have it saving to an external drive. I always save it to the internal drive because I'm old school and I remember the days when it just ejected drives. So I record to my main hard drive and then I will transfer it to another drive. If it needs ultimately to go to another machine, then it goes in the for transfer folder. And that's saying, I know that needs to go somewhere else. But the rest of it, the projects, the areas, the resources, the archives, they are identical to everything else. This drive is a copy of that drive. So they are the same. Then I've got my 8 terabyte drives. My 8 terabyte drives used to be a living nightmare. As you can see, I've got 7 of them and 7 backups. And when a drive gets full, I just take it, I uninstall it and install a new one. So I'm working at the moment on 6 and 7. And I look at them now. This one had been uninstalled. So I bring it back and I think I'm going to set this up. And I look at it and I've got like 300 folders in root. And I put the Para system on it and it was easy to sort out. Absolutely easy. So now I don't hyperventilate when I'm looking for it. I know where everything is in there. If it's active, it's in projects. If it's an ongoing thing, it's in areas. If it's something that supports something else, it'll be in resources. So for instance, in resources on here, you can see I've got courses. Well, they would be resources. My iCloud clearance was where I took things off iCloud because iCloud's a pain. And I put them in here. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is a resource, because that data would normally be in iCloud. This one, which is video processing system, every drive has one of these on, and you can see there's 1.5 terabytes of information in it. When I open that up, they all look identical. They are named with dollars and numbers and capitals, and they're color-coded. Every drive has that on it. I can see with this one that this is open, and I've got nothing in the encoding queue. But I don't ever, just imagine that I'm needing some recording that I've got, some video recording. And it could be on one of 12 drives. That it might be, but it's only ever going to be in one folder. It's going to be in the recordings folder. Unless it's already processed, in which case it'll be in the encoding queue. And once it's encoded, it goes into processed and that's it. End of. And so that's what 6 looks like. If we move on to 7, identical. Resources. I've got audio resources from Audio Hijack. I've got all my installation disks, because they would be resources as far as I was concerned. If I have no machines with these installed anymore, then I would stick them in the archives. But look, I have my video processing system. There's my 3 folders with the same colour coding. So it doesn't matter what the drive is, the data's going to be in the same place. Right down to my 200 gig card, which is shoved in the back of the machine. The MacBites drive is different. And I've also got this 1 terabyte one. So we can see there's nearly 400 free on that one. That's an exact copy of that. Then I've got 2 more drives down here that are not the same as this drive, but one's a 1 terabyte, one's a 2. You can see again, I've got for transfer, so I need 50 gig transferring off here. And the only thing that's different is the inbox is named with a number, so I know which drive is which. But other than that, they look the same. This one's got 80 gig for transfer. When I decided when I was implementing Para that I would implement it in one location. And I swear within 10 minutes, I was like, I'm going to have to Para everything. And I did, and I went through and I Para'd everything. Locally, I've got some stuff here that shouldn't be here, but what I'll do with this is show you what I would do with it. So this is my local documents. It's not my documents because they're in iCloud. These are my local documents. So I have an inbox. I have a production folder. That's different. That's the folder that I record my YouTube stuff into. So I want that at the top level so I can see it. Then I have project areas, resources and archives. So here I've got 2 icons. So they'd be resources. So I would look in resources for those. There's a poster for today. That's a resource. These I'm going to be working with, but that one is a resource at the moment. The other place that could legitimately go is it's to do with this, which is After Hours 170, which has a folder up there. This is my Para folders. This is, I'm going to use this in the demo. And then I've got recordings down here. Now there's nothing in recordings at the moment. And in my resources, I could certainly put it in there. So what I would do with that, I've dealt with that, that's gone. And this is something I'm actually working on, so I'll show it you now. So this is what would happen. Let's imagine we've got a new drive. I would take this little zip file and I would copy it into my new drive. So we're imagining that this is the root of a new drive. And all I do is double click that. I can then actually delete that because I copied it. And in my Para folders, there are my Para folders. And all I need to do is put them in the root of that. And I'm done. I've now Para'd a drive. It's that fast. So let's have a look at these extras. Now, an inbox is obvious. Application support might be less so. So we'll get rid of that. We'll go and look at the cloud services. So that is my Dropbox. And it's Para'd. I have an inbox, then I have Para, and then I have 3 extra folders. Right, the application support folder is mine. I have created that deliberately. The apps folder is not mine. Dropbox creates that and won't let me move it. And what it's got in it is information from apps that automatically install stuff. So Actions for iPad, which is as old as the hills, needed access to the apps folder. It's a special folder at Dropbox level. When I was using Dropbox for day one, so did that. DevonThink needs to be in there, all kinds of stuff. But these are hooking in via the Dropbox API to that apps folder. It's a special folder on Dropbox. I thought that's all very well, but I have other applications that are not capable of hooking into that apps folder, being a reserved folder, that I might, I do need settings saving to. So I decided I would create an application support folder. Why is it called application support? Well, if you go to your library, you will find in your library that you have an application support folder. And it is, as the name implies, for application support. Alfred, you name it, all in there. So I decided, where appropriate, where needed, I would create an application support folder and then put all of the information for any application inside there, organised by application. So you can see that one actually shouldn't be in there. So we'll get rid of that. But I have settings for a better finder rename. They are all in there. So if I want to create one for BASB sessions or download folders, para folder setup, all the configurations are within that folder, inside the folder that is the name of the app. This I've created to do a demo and show you. I have designer, photo and publisher. Then I've got my Alfred settings. I've pointed Alfred to that folder and said use that one. I've got audio hijack settings, BB edit settings, you name it, and they're in here. So in Camtasia, I have an inbox. I have assets for that. I have templates. So there's all kinds of stuff, but it's in one place. So even if I can't remember which cloud service it's in, doesn't matter. It's going to be in the application support folder. So you can't, if you've got 3 or 4 clouds to look through, you can't be far wrong. But if you've created like a unique folder structure that made sense at the time and doesn't make sense anymore, you'll never find anything. This is simple. You can't go wrong. All my Clarify stuff's in there. My colour palettes. This is my old machine. So before I nuke it in some kind of way, I transferred everything from the colour palettes over here, including that P list, which is the colour car park. So at the bottom of your colours palette, where you've put random colours, I even back that up. So I can just come over to Mohawk, which is the machine I'm working on right now, which I haven't installed them on yet. And when I've got custom palettes on here, I'll make a backup and I'll put them in there. They're available to me no matter where I am because they're in Dropbox. And so forth. Literally everything in here. One that I did a backup of today was Hazel. So the Hazel settings aren't in there, but the backups are. There's my Hazel rules. There's my other rules. They're just backed up. My custom configuration for Handbrake is in there. So that's backed up. Everything's backed up. Everything in there. Including something like PowerPoint. So PowerPoint isn't just 3 settings. PowerPoint is acres and acres of files. There we are. So what I've got in here, again, fractionally different because it makes sense. I don't know where the templates are on my Macintosh HD. I've no idea. But I did make an alias to them, so all I need to do is double click that and go to it. My slide library I want in root because I have elements in there that I need to repurpose. Then I have my inbox, then I have para, and then I have the 3 that are active. Last week's because I haven't exported it yet. This week's, that's actually been presented right now. And next week's, which is ready. In terms of these, you look in the archive, I've got my slide library, which I think I've exported, but I've also got in the archive, and this is probably one of the tidiest archives I've got, all the after hours from 2018 to 2019, 2020 to 2021, Sunday sessions that I did in 2021, after hours sessions in 2022, and live sessions from 2022. So in there, you will find all of them that I've done. It's impossible to lose something. Seriously, it is impossible. And I'm not afraid to just throw it in the archive. You could argue these are resources, you could repurpose them. I'm unlikely to just pull them out and use them as is though, so as far as I'm concerned, they're in the archive until they're needed. But today I needed a file because I needed one here. It would be this one. I needed a file from the beginning of December last year. And there they all are. And you can see they're all in 3 formats as well. So that's 159 from 17th of December. I've got it as a PowerPoint file, I've got it as a PDF, and I've got it as a range of images. So if we go into there, each slide saved out as an image, and they're loaded into Notion. And then they're archived, just thrown in the archive. But if I need it, which I did today, I can just go and find it, open it, take the slide I need, and close it again. So that is a subfolder of the application support folder. So what's that showing you? Para doesn't have to exist at one level. You can sub-para, and that's what I've done there. Although the application support isn't actually within para, as far as I'm concerned, that is subordinate to another folder, so it's a sub-para thing. Right, Kim says, at some point could you show how you save all the app info for one of the apps? Yes, of course I can do that. So that's what I've got in Dropbox. And it was Dropbox hang on, that's not Dropbox. There we go. It was Dropbox that gave me the idea to create this application support folder. I do not want to be looking all over the place to see my files, particularly the support files. So one thing that I've done in here as well is BBEdit. The BBEdit one isn't just, it's not data. If you look at it, colour schemes, custom things, menu scripts, what? I have a symlink pointing to that. So it doesn't matter what machine I'm on. If I create another colour scheme, it's available to them all because all my machines are looking at that folder in Dropbox. It takes maybe a couple of minutes to set that up when I install an app, but future you will thank past you because they're all in one place. So that was Dropbox. I do the same with all of my cloud services. There is Google Drive. Google Drive has the inbox. It has Para. It has an application support folder. And within the application support, you can see I've got things like Audio Hijack that was on the other one. I've got my Affinity assets and I've got Affinity folders. That is historic. I was using Google Drive and then I moved to Dropbox. But I thought, well, I might as well just leave the files and folders there. You know, I might move the contents, but I'm going to leave the folders in case something happens and I have to go back. There is a public one and there is a public one in Dropbox. And the idea with that is, if I share something publicly, I just put it in one place. So I know that anything that's in that folder is automatically shared. I don't have to share it individually. It's shared at folder level. And it just happens to be in root. The one extra folder in Google Drive is the black hole. The black hole being drop zone and how Mike and I transfer files to each other quickly. So within the black hole, we've got drops for me, drops for Mike, and anything that needs printing.
Kimmy loves the black hole.
The black hole is famous, is infamous. But that's what that's doing in root. We did decide to move it to Dropbox. And then we realised what a big mistake that was. Right, it was a mistake because on Google Drive, you download files on demand. In Dropbox, it downloads them for you. And I'm like, no, that's not happening. Not with a 1 terabyte drive, it's not. So that's why the black hole stays on Google Drive. They're all fractionally different. I literally have this done everywhere. So if we were to look at OneDrive, it would look like that. If we were to look at pCloud, it looks like that. They all look the same. There may be an odd variant like the black hole, but it tends not to. So we've looked at local drives, we've looked at cloud drives, we've looked at exceptions to Para, where I put an extra folder in. We've looked at sub-paraing something. But the whole point is that's pure Para. And there's a whole range, I think there's 9 really quite long blog posts from Tiago Forte explaining Para. If you want to go read all 9, feel free. The links are in there, Mike. But in terms of that, pure Para is organising your files. But you don't have to stop there, because once you've para'd something, you instantly understand where things are. So, I don't use Evernote anymore. I gave that up years ago. But I do still capture stuff to it. So, I went into Evernote and I thought, right, what have I got in here? So if there's something that I want to keep, like some articles and stuff, like Stage Manager, don't like it. But my notebooks over here, I have one notebook that's the inbox. I then have a stack of notebooks for projects, areas, resources, archive. The one exception in here is my Readwise notebook, which is automatically synchronizing to Readwise. I guess I could move that, but it put it there, so I'm just going to leave it. But that's Evernote completely para'd, which means it's the same principle. Is it something that's active, then it's going to be in projects. It's as simple as that. So that's Evernote. I do this all over the place. GoodNotes looks identical. Obviously, I don't need an application support in there, but you can see I have an inbox, I have projects, areas, resources, and archives. So in my projects, no, inbox is empty. That's good, isn't it? In my projects, I've got my BASB notes, and I've got some notes I made from a tour of a system. My 2021 notebook's still in there because I'm kind of actively referring to that. My 2022 notebook is in there, and a couple of other things that I've made notes on. My 2021 notebook and my 2022, they are just general notebooks. I will have a 2023 that I will start on the 1st of January. So I do split it up purely so it remains quite snappy on the app by year. But if we go and we look at what areas I've got, I create courses. So I have a course creation area, governorship. Now that's interesting. I've just resigned as a school governor. So it's not an active area anymore. It doesn't need to be an area because it's not ongoing anymore. So I would right click on it. I would say move. Where am I moving it to? The archives. Move. It's gone. All of the others are still active. So we go back, go to resources. I've got demo planners. I've got manuals for stuff. I've got templates and I've got Zettelkasten set up in there. And in terms of how disorganised the archives are, it's not that bad. There's the one I've literally just archived. These are old demo files. These are old notebooks and stuff. Now, in terms of my archives being old notebooks, I open this up. There's my notebooks. 2017, 18, 19, 20. Don't know why I didn't put 20 on the front. But I've even got here, black notebook, 2017 Q4. I can picture in my mind what that looked like. It was a physical notebook. I tore out the pages that weren't relevant. I scanned the rest, and that's a PDF. And that's my notebook. The other one that I did that with was this white binder. This white binder, I had 2006 to 2007. It's my white binder. It had all kinds of stuff in it because it was a binder. It was quite big. I ended up just scanning the lot. So when I open my white binder from them, this is what it looks like. White binder, notes circa 2006-7, and this was me designing, I don't know what we were doing, Mike, but it was Verdana with Midnight Blue. I don't know, but we were doing some kind of web design, and there's my notebook. And obviously it's archived now, no longer needed, but I would probably have physically kept the darn thing, and I just didn't need to. I scanned what was relevant. I don't know how many pages are in it. Maybe we can have a look. Let's have a look. Let's get back in there. What have I done with this? No, we don't want you. We want that as the other one. We don't want that. Move the page. Oh, yes, I meant yes. Don't twiddle them around. So that's the cover. Up here. You're going to tell me how many pages? The mobile version does. Let's whip right the way down to the bottom. There you go, 68 pages in there. And it's archive. But if Mike said to me, remember that white binder you had? I'd say, yeah, it's in GoodNotes. It's in the archive. And I'd be able to find it. So it works everywhere, all over the place. Trust me on that. Right. The one more place that I've got that. Let me bring this across. Is... Go on. Where have you gone? Oh, I had a page open. Come on. Was it a MacBites? No, it was the comms. Where have you gone? There it is. Right, so I'm bringing across my browser. And we'll set that up. That is Notion. I don't actually like to see the sidebar on Notion. I've created my own. So this is my sidebar for MacBites 2.0. But at the very top level, there is a sidebar. I have my flight deck, which is my dashboard, and then I have my projects, areas, resources, and archives. And if we go into the projects, there are the projects, and there are my areas. And I've got resources, and now the archives are a mess. We'll totally admit the archives are a mess. Drag, drop, forget. But yeah, everything that I need is in there. And again, I don't want to think about it because it's the same. It's the same. Right, let's bring that back. Okay, so you want to see how I would set this up and how this would actually work. The best way to demonstrate it is probably what I've done with Google, with the Affinity apps. So I have picked a primary service. My primary cloud service is Dropbox. And in here, I've got my application support folder. Now, that's where I would choose to put my files for the Affinity apps. There is two ways to look at this. You could either put your files in a folder for a particular app. That is what iCloud wants you to do endlessly. So if we look at iCloud, you've got these folders. Let's have a look what icons they've got at the moment. Are you in a good mood? They're not even in the right order. Sort by name. Not bad, not bad. The Affinity Designer one's totally right on here. The thing that annoys me with this is none of these are right. I mean, this shouldn't be the beta one. That should just say Affinity Publisher. These two should have the correct icon, which they don't. And on mobile, it's even worse. But the idea with iCloud is that all your MindNode files go in the MindNode folder. All your napkin files go in the napkin folder. And that's the way they want you to organise. The problem with that is if you've got some files and they were for a particular project, do you archive the files with the project, or do you leave the files in the root of the folder that is dedicated to the app? And when this was brought in, were you as horrified as me, Mike? Because I didn't want the files in a folder to do with the app. There are occasions that make sense. Obsidian's one of them, because they're all my notes. But there's occasions where it doesn't. So shouldn't I put the posters for After Hours in a MacBites folder? Anyway, because I decided it would be easier to just leave them where they were for working on the iPad, that's what I decided to do. But then iCloud started randomly deleting files, and I thought this isn't good. So I thought they need to move. So what I did was I went to Dropbox and I looked at the folder structure, and I thought you could work with some of these files in projects because they're active and you're working with them now. Or other things would be an area. So in areas, you know, I've got... there's another example. So MacBites is an area. It's an ongoing area. If it's something to do with a household, it could go in there. Brooklands, at the moment, on hiatus. It doesn't need to be in areas. Let's stick it in archives. And it's that fast. You open it up, you look at it and you think, no, don't need that, move it. So I decided it's for an application, so I'm going to put it in application support. So I have 4 folders to do with that. The 3 that are the app are dual purpose. They are for the settings, the templates, the assets, and the files. The Affinity Apps folder is not. That is for things that are shared across the board. So what these look like, if we go into Designer, you'll see all these files. They are my files. You can also see I've got whole collections here to do with posters. So it says poster set, and they're all in there. The interesting ones are the ones at the top, which is the assets. The assets folder is assets that came from Affinity Designer. And these are here so I can reinstall them on a new machine. They're also there as backup, and you can see I've even got retired stuff in there. But asset files can be shared across all the apps. So they don't really need to be locked in a designer folder. The templates, however, these are active. When I point to a template, this is where they go. I have generic MacBites. I haven't got mics installed. So I've got those 3 and they are active. That's where it looks for them because you can tell it where to look. So I tell it to look in the templates folder in Dropbox in my Affinity Designer folder. And then this one's just files that are to be all organised. So how I go about that. First of all, I create the folder. So we look at this Affinity Apps one. I've created the folder. And then I would go into an app. I thought that was already open. It is. That's a fault. They're working on it. When you activate the app, it should bring back the active window. It isn't doing. Right, so I've got this file, but I've also got in here some assets. So I've got MacBites, mic, personal branding, and whatever that is. Right, from here, if I want to back this up, I want it on my laptop or whatever, I can export these assets. So I would export those assets. It's defaulting to the desktop, that's the last place that I saved, but I want to go into here. I would have to go to Dropbox and then fiddle around. I'd have to go to Dropbox, I'd have to go to Application Support, open that up, and it's near the top. All right, it's going to export it as untitled, which is no good to man nor beast. So I'll make that MacBites and save it. And now those assets are saved. I've put them in the Affinity Apps folder because I can open that up elsewhere. So if we go into, I don't know if I've put this in Publisher. I think I probably have. And I think that's got the same problem. Right. Assets, what have we got? They're in there. So you go away for a bit and we'll bring up Photo. Because I didn't take the time and install them into Photo. Pretty confident I didn't. So let's assume I'm working in Photo and I need access to these assets. I would know exactly where they were. So let's get the file in there. Here's my assets. Just default at the moment, nothing else. But I can go into here and I can import them. And I know they're going to be in one place. So this is going back to 170, etc. But these are going to be in the right place, which is Application Support, Affinity Apps. There they are. Open them up. And that is how I would use that. So they're in one place. If I am out and I'm working on somebody else's machine and I think, oh, I've left that in the assets back in the office, they're in the cloud. So I can just do that. To make that a little bit easier, I have cheated. So let me show you what I've done with that. Let's say, let me show it you in a Finder. Right, in iCloud Drive, you've got these folders and they can't be got rid of anyway. But they don't have data in them anymore. What they have in them is two aliases. This one that goes to Dropbox, the Affinity Designer folder on Dropbox, and this one that goes to Google Drive. That does make it a little bit faster because, let me show you. If we're in here and I want to save a file, it brings me this up and it's defaulting to the right place at the moment. But if you imagine that that wasn't, so let's say it was pointing to the desktop because that's where I'd saved something. This at the top is the link to the iCloud folder, the one I'm not using. But when I go to it, I've got my aliases in it. So I don't care where they are. I can use that, click on the alias straight to there, and then I can save the file. So how do you set that up? Well, the one thing I don't have set up at the moment from iCloud Drive is you can see I've got these three folders, but I don't have the Affinity Apps one. So, not that there will be much of a benefit in this, but it will serve as a demonstration. Right, I will create a new folder. I will call this Affinity Apps. I will shove it to the top of the list. At the moment, there is nothing in there. So, what I need to do at Dropbox level, in my application support, there is my Affinity Apps folder. Right, I need to create an alias to that, which I can do here, make an alias. And that gives me little alias. You can see it's got a tiny different symbol on it in the corner. That is my alias, and I need it on iCloud, so it will point back to that folder. So I'm going to take that, and I am going to move it into that folder there, which is on iCloud. Do you want to remove it? Yes, I do. Right, over here, I don't want it called alias at the end. I want to get rid of that. And when I double-click that, it will take me to the Affinity Apps folder, and there are my MacBites assets in it. It's just a faster way to work. Now, I'm never going to be shown the Affinity Apps folder in iCloud because it's not linked up to any of the apps. So while I can do that, if I copy that and I go back into my Affinity Designer one and I add it there and I add it into Photo, so all I've done is copied it, pasted it. Now I have, I don't want to though, do I? So let's get it away from that. Is it Publisher? There we go. Now I can get to that Affinity Apps folder with that alias and it's on Dropbox. But because the only folder I'm shown is the iCloud folder, I'm cheating and I'm using the iCloud folder to point to other locations. So I call that creating a mesh of it, a mesh of cloud services. Sometimes I use an alias, which you've just seen, but if it's an application, so I think this is what Kim was asking about. If it's an application, how do you do that? Right, how you do it if it's an application. So let's take a look at Alfred, just as an example. Right, we have, is it under advanced? I do believe it is. There it is. Right. You have to be careful with which cloud services you use, but usually within an app, there is an option to use a cloud of some description. Okay. So here it's got syncing, and it's set to sync to Dropbox, application support, Alfred. So all I need to do is hit this option and point it to a folder. So if that folder doesn't exist, I go and create it. I come into Alfred, I say set the preferences folder, show it up there, and it will link to it. So if I reveal that in the Finder, there it is. There's the preferences. And if we look at the path, it's Dropbox, application support, Alfred. So I created that folder and put it there. Another application would be Typinator. So the application itself doesn't matter. What we've got here is, tell me it's in the preferences. Tell me it's in here. There we go. So you tell it where to store its data, and I've just told it application support. So it's a consistency of where you put that. Now, the times it gets tricky is where the application doesn't let you set the folder. That's annoying. That's really, really annoying. So those two applications, it's a manual set it yourself job in the app and you're done. But what if the app doesn't let you? So for example, we will go to the library. So I've had to hold the Option key down to get to the library, and in my application support in there, I do believe I have BBEdit. And in there, I've got that pointing. I'm pretty sure I have. I think I've put a symlink in, but the thing with this is, in here, see, I've got my symlinks for my scripts and my text filters. So I want, when I create a script, to have it available on all my machines. And when I create text filters, I want them on all my machines. BBEdit doesn't have that option. It's going to save it into my library application support folder, or it thinks it is. As far as the system is concerned, that's exactly what it's doing, but they're not there because you can see these are saying aliases. So my scripts and my text filters, guess what? They're in Dropbox application support, even though there is no option to do it. How did I do that? Well, I've gone in and I've done it with two of these, but let's say this one here. These colour schemes are per machine at the moment. I mean, there's nothing in there. I haven't got a custom one, but it'll do. We'll do it. Right. For this one, what I would do is in here, make an alias for it. There's the alias. In fact, no, I'm doing that wrong. I'm lying to you. Forget that. Right. What I would do with it is I would move over to my Dropbox. I would move into my BBEdit. There it is. And there's my colour schemes on there. Right. So what I would do is I would create an alias to the one on Dropbox. And so we know that that is on Dropbox. I'll even title it Dropbox. Right, I will copy that into my BBEdit folder. Right, and now I've got this that's pointing to the Dropbox ones and this one that's local. I can just delete it and I can rename my alias. And now whenever BBEdit is looking for a colour scheme, it's going to be looking in Dropbox. So there's two different ways of doing it. If your application supports it, figure one location. So the source of your drive, application support, name of app, and you're done. If it doesn't, then use either an alias or a symbolic link. A symbolic link is deeper. If the system doesn't work with an alias, try a symbolic link. But if you can get away with an alias, then an alias is fine. And that is the other way of doing it. Right, do we have any questions at that point?
Yes.
Right.
We have one from Jammy, who, first of all, missed your shout out, so could you do the shout out again?
Hello, Jammy, and Jammy's other half. Hello! There you go.
Jammy says, Good Notes has just reminded me, do you still use Notability since they've gone subscription only?
No, I have always used Good Notes, except I didn't want to upgrade my Mac to the latest OS, and I'd found myself on a beta. And then randomly, without telling me, they made it that without the new OS, it didn't work. That was when I started using Notability, because I needed it to sync between my desktop and my iPad. So I used Notability for about 6 months. I love the inking with it. I think that is better than GoodNotes. I hated the page management. So when I updated my operating system, I did a quick test with it and I switched back to GoodNotes. So I have Notability installed. I had purchased it and they did grandfather you onto something. But what I did with my Notability notes was I exported them all as PDFs and I imported them into GoodNotes. So no, I didn't like the way they went about the subscription. I mean, I'm not overly fond of subscriptions to start with, but I didn't like the way that they went about it and then backtracked and all the rest of it. It's like they have to be publicly shamed to do the right thing. So no, I did move back to GoodNotes. If I had a need for handwritten notes, and for whatever the reason GoodNotes wasn't available, I don't think I would pay the subscription, but I would probably use whatever it is that I'm grandfathered onto. However, there is, of course, CollarNote, and CollarNote is amazing. The development on that, the time, the speed they develop on it is amazing, and it's totally free. So I tend to have an app, and then I have a backup app that I've got, and that would be my backup app. So CollarNote is there, it's set up, it's configured, it's powered, it's ready to use. And, you know, I even do that with other notes apps, that it is actually there and it's ready to use. But no, I moved away from Notability. Do we have anything else?
No.
Oh, okay then. Right. So let's have a look what's left on here then. So a couple of things in relation to Para. There's a lot of organisation going on. You can do most of it in Finder, but if you are minded at the moment, there is a few apps that I use to support my work in Para. So the first one is Pathfinder. Pathfinder's a subscription, I know, for a Finder app, but it's Black Friday and there is a one-off license available and it's half price. So let me get this up. Let's go to Pathfinder Mac app. Go on, find it. There we go. Cocotac. Right. They should be screaming it from the rooftops. Should still be on. Should we have a look under purchasing? Don't think you need a code. Oh, good grief. It's not listed. Do you need a code? I'll find out. But this license, which is a 1 year, you get updates free for a year. That was half price. Surely they've not taken it off at this stage for Black Friday. That's ridiculous. I'll see if you need a code or something special. Right, the other one that I use is HowToSpot. And HowToSpot, I use this constantly for searching for files, finding files. I use it multiple times a day. It's brilliant. It's not that expensive. Let's have a look at it. And there is another code for this. They're not advertising these sales. This is ludicrous. Oh, here we go. 30% off if you use Black Friday 2022. So it's gone from £35 to £25. That one I use all the time. Don't know if there is a sale. If your needs are not that advanced, there's Tembo. And Tembo is like a cut down version of HowToSpot. And that's only £11. So those are on sale at the moment. I use an app called Cloud Mounter for mounting cloud drives. But one of the other ones for that is Expand Drive. So if you want to have, say, OneDrive mounted without installing the OneDrive app, you can use Expand Drive. And these are also on sale. So I think these had 50% off today. Loath to actually mention it because, you know, if you're watching in the future, then you've missed the sale. Apologies for that, but that's how it works. So there is money off for Black Friday. But again, these need updating after a year, etc., etc. So I don't actually use that one at the moment, but I have done in the past. Right, okay then. Let me move up here. I've just seen a comment there from Kim that said, OMG, this is brilliant. I don't know what that was about, but excellent.
Para. In general, I
Joe
think.
says it's no longer Black Friday. They usually do leave these on until at least Cyber Monday, though, or the 30th. whichever comes first. So I would be surprised if they'd taken it off, but you never know. You never know, do you? Right, okay. Oh, Deborah likes both of those. Pathfinder and How to Spot. They are just brilliant. How to Spot is so good when you're looking for a file of a particular type and it's not where it should be. Because you can actually create... Let me show you what I created for these. You can create saved settings. And so I know this looks horrendously complicated. In essence, what this bottom bit's doing is don't show me double files. So exclude all of the backup drives. Don't show me the backup drives. But the interesting thing is over here, instead of just searching for a file and being returned stuff that's irrelevant, you can pre-configure it so you're only going to show me designer files. So this is a template, and you can see the extension is AF Design. And there's the photo one, and there's the publisher one, and it's whipping through and it's showing you all of the files. So yeah, I love that. That does work brilliantly well. Right, okay, we're going to have to march on with the next one, aren't we? Oh, and I had one more thing. In true Steve style, I had one more thing, which was earlier on the desktop, this one, things we did first, I created a shortcut key for the vector crop tool. And I said I will show you what I would do with that. These are my shortcut keys. This is all the shortcut keys I have configured as of today in Designer. So the place that I would put that, I would not be thinking I'll just dump that in a folder and I'll sort it all out later. No, there's somewhere it goes. It would be in my application support folder. It was for Designer. So into Designer, I've got assets and templates. Might actually need a new folder there. So if I make a folder, that'll have disappeared down here somewhere. Good grief. Right. Keyboard shortcuts. That won't push it to the top of the list, but that will. So let's get down there. There's keyboard shortcuts. I would then put that in there. Now, if I get to the stage with these things that I've got assets, templates, keyboard shortcuts, all kinds of stuff, I may put these in a configuration folder that pushes to the top as well. I don't know. But at the moment, I'm quite happy to work with those. Assets are what I would use most, followed by templates. And now I've got my keyboard shortcuts and it's disappeared off there. I know exactly where they are. Even if I can't remember what drive, they're going to be in application support Affinity Designer. So we've wrapped that one up as well. Okay. Awesome. Who's upgraded to what? Oh, Affinity. Yes, I've had a few issues. I've broken a couple of things. But that's me, isn't it? That's me. Right, I've got freebies. I have freebies. I have what are known as Twemojis. They're like emojis, but they're from Twitter. So if you put an emoji on Twitter, it uses its own set of emojis. But what not many people know is these can be downloaded. Not only can they be downloaded, but the downloads that you can download, they are PNGs, which are tiny, 72 pixels square. Also, you have SVGs, which you can open up in Affinity. And that's what I've used here. So they're not pixelating. I can use SVGs straight into PowerPoint. So Mike will put the link in for that. It is twemoji.twitter.com. You will then link to GitHub and you download them from there. So there's 2 links that are going in and you can use those in your apps. So can't say fairer than that. Right, we will. This one I've called Day 1. I have to get on pretty quick with this. Right, Day 1 of the MacBites Advent Calendar. So every year, I think we've been doing it 10 years this year. Every year from the 1st of December to the 25th of December, we have something for you every single day. Oh, it comes around, I can't believe it's 12 months since the last one. But it is 12 emails, so make sure you're subscribed. And each one will have something free in it. So you've had a sneak peek of at least a couple of these things, because I've just done covers for Mike. But the first one will enable you to track all the rest. So let's head off into Publisher. Right, what have I got in Publisher? Right, I'm starting completely from scratch with this. And I was in two minds of what to actually do and what size to make it. And that depended on how you were consuming it. So I may change my mind in relation to this before Thursday. But at the moment, let's go for A4. It's going to be a PDF, and so it's going to be RGB. We will have it opening that way. Do I need facing pages? Now, the thing with facing pages is, if I go for facing pages, this could get tricky. If I go for facing pages, then what happens when you make a PDF is either the spreads from the left page and the right page are split up, which doesn't work well for what I'm about to create. Or you end up with a huge cover at the beginning and a huge cover at the end. So actually, I don't think facing pages for what I'm creating is such a grand idea. So I'll say no to facing pages. Margins and stuff, I probably will use margins. I just probably don't want them that wide. That's a bit much. So let's link them up and make them only 10. But then I'll make the bottom one, because I'm probably going to want page numbers on it. I'll make the bottom one 15. Right. I don't need a bleed on it because it's RGB and it's PDF. So that doesn't look too bad. Let's create that. Okay. Right. That's going to be my front cover. So in my pages here, I will just be aware of the fact that that's going to be my front cover. Then I'll probably have something explaining what it is. But at some point, I'm going to need to do this. So let's do this. Right, I think I've got assets all over the place for this. Did I import the right assets? Imported some assets. I've got one half that I need, so let's have a look at the other half. That's got almost everything, just not quite, but it's a good place to start. So if we're doing this for the whole of December, then what you need is a calendar for the whole of December for this. So that's what I would be looking to put on here. So what I don't have as a general asset, that's bizarre, isn't it? Yes, I think what I'll do, I'll go into Designer and I'll go and get it. So it does exist, the asset I want does exist, but I haven't actually put it into here, which is silly of me, isn't it? Right, let's go to the templates and look at the MacBites ones, and it's in here. So it's one of these things that I want. Let's have a look. Most of these are locked because this is all automated. If I type something in here, oh, have you noticed from 2023? Let's just say like that. They all ripple through. So it's all automated, but I'm not interested in any of that. What I'm interested in is my background, and I have a standard background and I have a red background. I think we'll go for the standard one now. So I'm copying that and I'm putting it in here. And I'm making it the right size. This is just a shape with a gradient in it. I'm foreseeing, though, that I would want to maybe reuse this in other circumstances. So it would probably be a good idea to add it in over here at some point. But for the moment, I do have Wolfie available. So we'll add Wolfie. Quite sure where we'll put Wolfie, but at the moment he can go down there. And then I need to switch. Now I've got that dark background in, it's going to be a nightmare, you know, because everything else is black. Yeah, I'll worry about the background shortly. What I'm looking to create in here, I have my calendar creation kit, and I'm looking for December. So I've got all of these options in here. I'm not interested in the headings for days because it's not weekly, it's going to be a month. But I am going to need the December one. So let's just drag the December header on and pop that in. Then I'm looking for my months, and I need to know, oh, should we take a poll? Do you want a Monday start or a Sunday start? I'm a Monday start girl myself. So I'll go with that in the demo, but let me know in the chat. If you want an option, I can do too. So I need to work out what day it starts. So it's Thursday. Thursday is the 1st of December. So I drag this on, and it's plain as anything. but that's fine because I'm going to work on it. So I'll push that up a bit, push that up a bit, and I can stretch this to fit. And handily, wouldn't you credit that? Wolf is going to be fine there, isn't he, behind that? That'll work nicely. Oh, Debbie uses a Sunday start. I've never been able to do that. It doesn't work with my brain, but I will do that. Right, so what I've done is I've got a table. It's just a standard table and it already had the numbers in. So I have months with a Monday start. I have months with a Monday start with the month included. So I've used one of these. I've then got the Sunday start, so I can do a Sunday start as well. But I need to make some changes for this to make any sense. So we'll be doing a little bit of work with tables here because it doesn't make sense. These need to be this big, but it doesn't make sense that these are this big. They need to be much shorter than that. So if I hold this down, you can see what happens. It stretches. That does go smaller, but the whole thing shrinks. Right. You have keys for this, but you can see what's happening every time. But because I'm stretching just one, I'm changing just one. If I hold all the others, I can change all the others and not change the one that's not selected. So how I'm doing that is the Option key. The alternative to that is making that smaller and then these bigger and that smaller and these bigger, and it's a nightmare. So hold the Option key. The Option key is your friend. Now, these are okay. These will be formatted in some kind of way, but these with the numbers in the middle, the numbers shouldn't be in the middle. So that's all very simple to deal with. Grab hold of all of them. And you should have, and I'm frantically looking for it. No, that's textiles. Interesting. I would have thought I had that open. Remember that it is no longer View Studio panels. They are now under Window. And in here I have table. The table's ticked. So where are you? Where are you hiding? Am I just ignoring that? No, that's textiles. Ah, there it is. What are you doing over there? I never have you over there. I have you over here. Right, so I'm using the table panel. I've got the cells selected and now I'm working in here. And what I'm looking for, the trick with this, a lot of people go to the top and they've changed this, then it's like, that doesn't work. No, because that is for the frame. That is for the stroke and fill. We are not interested at the moment in these. We are interested in the cells themselves. But we can't put the thing in the right place until we've got the vertical position sorted. So it's in the middle at the moment. And we don't want it there. We want it bottom aligned. Then we want it right aligned, which we can do in here. Wrong one, that one. So let's right align it. At that point, you're no longer interested in the vertical position because you've set it, but these are far too close to the junction of each cell. That is where the insets come in and you can up them. Now, because they're linked, as I'm going from 1 to 2, they're all moving. And that should be not too bad. We can make these as fancy as we like, but we now have a December. Right. I will be creating something better than I'll probably manage in the time I've got tonight, but we'll start with Thursday and Friday. And so I'm just doing it with a nice square, but we know that somebody has already got nice little washi tape things. But what I'm going to do here is put in what we can expect in or from MacBites. So first of all, that one. Why are you not moving in the way I want you to move? Oh, I'll fix that later. Right. So Thursday, we have something, don't we? So we need to put something in Thursday. I'm going to do that one first. Now, I already have some of the material that I may want to use. So if we go back to that, I said we had the background here. So there is the background in red. So I'll take that and we will lose that again. And that is way too big, isn't it? But we can scoot this down. It's just a shape. We can make it any shape we like as well. So we're looking to fill that gap there. Okay, I can see chat moving. Debbie's down to 120 and still working. Right. There we go. Right. That one is red. We'll make it 10. 10 would be nice, wouldn't it? Right. That is red because it's the first. So that's the MacBites Advent. We can use the assets that we've got. So over to MacBites. We have Wolfie. So we'll stick Wolfie in there again. A much smaller Wolfie. So we'll put him at the top. Like that. We'll put in MacBites. So we've already got the text with it. It's a little bit big, but these assets can all be rescaled. So let's pop that down like that. And the last thing we need is just some plain text. So I will go and get the plain text, which is Advent Calendar Day 1. Right, let's pop that at the bottom. That's not what I want. So let me do that outside it and bring it in. Right, Advent Calendar. And we'll take that down to Day 1. Right, are you the right font? No, of course you're not. We use Myriad Pro. So let's make that Myriad Pro. And it's black at the moment, and we would like it to be white. So, oh, you're hiding behind the table. Don't do that. And let's put it in the right place, which is there. MacBites Advent Calendar Day 1. In fact, I think we could probably get that text a little bit bigger, couldn't we? Like that. There. Right. Now, all of those elements, so we've got this element, we've got the MacBites, we've got the wolf, and we've got the background. Let's group them. And we'll take a copy of that, and we will move that to Friday. Obviously, there'll be a Day 2 there. So that's the first thing we can do. But the other thing that we can do, I've got another copy of it, and I'm moving it down. And with a tiny bit of a difference, we can make that MacBites After Hours. So that one would be MacBites After Hours. Not Day 1 for that. Next week is 171. Right, that would probably need squishing up a bit. But it doesn't need to be red, does it? It needs to be blue. And I have a copy of the blue down somewhere. Where did I put the blue? I turned it off, didn't I? There's the blue. So if I copy that and turn it on, I'm going to need to be much higher up here. Much higher. In fact, we could even take it out of the group, couldn't we? Right, so it's right at the top. There we go. And what I'm doing is making that as small as the other one, and I'm going to swap the background for that one. So let's get that almost in the right place. This actually isn't precise, but like I said, I am severely overrunning. Right, a little bit less. Oh, don't be awkward. Oh, all right then. I'm just going to go with whatever you want. It should snap to the other one behind it, which it is. And then all I need to do is to get it in the right place. So, where are we? That is indeed the right place. I can get rid of that one now. And there we go. So, the plan is that there will be a multi-page toy for you to play with, which will have all the shows on it. So up here now, are you in one group? And you shouldn't be in one group. Let me tidy up. See how the tidying up you don't actually have to do, but you really should. To organise it, you really should. Right, so that one, the following week on the 9th, is going to be 20172. Awesome. Right. Is there any benefit in mail merging that? What do we think? What do we think? Hello, sweetie! Not seen you for ages. Is there any benefit in mail merging that? What do you think, Mike?
Yeah.
Could be, but you know, for 5, I probably wouldn't bother. It's going to depend what I do with the rest of this, because When I finish this, we'll have one of these for each one, going through to the 30th. We're not the night, but 'twas the night before Christmas this year. 'Twas the night before Christmas on the 23rd. See what I did there? But the rest of this, so that means there's 5 shows in December. And so what I thought we'd do is create a workbook for the 5 shows in December. So I need to move on from this to then creating a layout for you to make notes or whatever you want to do for each show. That's the bit that I think would work well as a mail merge. But if this entire document was a mail merge, so let's go in and create one set of these. So this is our calendar, and then we're going to come on to this, and this one is going to be a layout for show 171. Right, it doesn't matter what that layout's going to look like, so we'll literally just put a square on it and say that is for 171. And you'll probably have more than one page of notes for 171. So I'd move on to the next page, and both of these are going to be for 171. How can I mail merge it then? How can I data merge that? Because if I data merge it, I'm going to get these pages as well. There's something to ponder. What should you do with that? You're putting together a document. It's going to have its own cover page. It's going to have maybe a table of contents and an introduction. It's got a calendar, and it only needs one of each of those. But then you're moving on to 171. And after 171, you are moving on to 172. If you data merge all of that, you're going to end up with one 171, one 172, and 5 calendars by the time you're finished. So what do you need to do? How would you organise that? Let's see who's been paying attention to the new features. So what I actually need to do in this file is not worry about these other pages. All I need to put in this file is the opening that I need for my book. So I'm going to delete everything apart from the cover page, the introduction, and the calendar. And that is going to be my introduction to the book. So we'll call this, we'll save it. That's what we'll do. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to stick it on the desktop so I know where it is for the moment. And this is going to be Workbook Intro. But what do I need to do now? Because in essence, I need 5 chapters that are identical, except for the show number. And I can't mail merge it. What would you do, Mike? Oh, you'd ask me, wouldn't you? That's cheating. Right, it's really easy. There's a new feature, isn't there? There was a new feature. We go to Window, we have the option for Books now. And I demonstrated this, Books. If I create a new book, so this is going to be my workbook. Let me save the book as, and that should give us Workbook. In fact, let's be more precise. After Hours Workbook. In fact, MacBites After Hours Workbook. Okay. Then all I need to do is put in the separate sections of the book. The first one would be the intro, and then I would have a completely different file that I data merge, and then I bring that in. So we've got the book ready, and we have one aspect of this to add to it. So at the moment down here, we can add one. So there's our workbook intro, and open. So it's opened that in there. Because it's open, it's got a little lock next to it, but that is the start of our workbook. Right, in the week, I'm going to create the other chapters. What do I add to this book? What do I do next? Obviously, I'm going to create another file. It's going to be exactly the same size, shape, and everything as everything else. And this one's going to have the chapters in it. So I would design this once. So let's do our group here. And let's say I'm only doing 2 pages. So each show is going to have 2 pages. We don't need the rest of these. What do I do next? Let's have a look. Hello, Tom. 2 hours of action-packed info. Where have you been all my life? I don't know. But you're here now, and that's all that matters. Right. What do you do? Well, this is going to be my middle bit. So if I save this as individual show, shall I make it really simple? I'll take a yes or no on this. We know when I go into my book that we've got the intro, and the next thing I need is the chapters. So do I add that file I've just created, this one, to the book? So let's see a yes or a no on that. Do I add it? Ooh, compile for Scrivener. Did you see our Scrivener series, which was from memory October, November last year? Oh, we did compile. It was exciting. Right. No one's saying yes or no, Mike, so it falls to you. Do I add that to our book or not?
Yeah.
Right. What's your logic in doing that? Oh, I'm getting answers coming in now. I've got 2 yeses and another one from Mike.
I'm just agreeing with the people in the chat.
Oh, I see. Right, you're cheating then. Right, here's why you don't do that. Because if I add this individual show, I get the pages for this individual show. So, let me open up Eagle. Let's get those over there. I'm looking for after hours posters. Where are you? So I'll get the poster for next week, which is this one. So I would be looking to have that, not like that, to have that there. Right. And then I would be looking to have 171, 172, 173 and so forth. This file that I'm working in, individual show, is the source file for the data merge. This is not the file that I add. I create this file, I keep it outside of the book. I run the data merge on it. And the second file that's created is the one that I add to the book. So no, you do not add that file. You add the merged file to the book. So what I will do in the week is I will do the layout for the interior chapters. And next week I will show you the merge. And by then you'll actually have the document to look at in your hand as well. I will show you what you do add to it. And then the fact that you would also add the outro to the book. So the intro and the outro to the book are separate, and the middle part of the book is a data merge with multiple shows in it. So that is going to be our workbook. So we've got to the stage where we're at stage 1. But if you're going to try this midweek, I thought I'd let you know, don't add that book. Because, or no, don't add that book. That's just a source file. Okay. Let me go into here.
There's a question.
Okay. Don't know if to move on or back. We'll leave it there. Right, what's the question?
Deborah says, so you don't add the shows as individually editable sections?
No, they don't need to be individually editable. I think
you've answered the question.
Yeah, they're all going to be the same. They're going to provide like lined paper and dotted paper for you to make your own notes. So it's going to be like a workbook. But they are all the same apart from the poster and the title. So we'll be data merging the poster and the title. And the file that we add to the book is the one with 5 chapters in it, not the source file for the data merge. But I wanted to take us that far today, and I wanted to make the point that you don't add that file. Don't add that file to the book. You can create the book, and you can add the beginning and the end, but don't do the middle until you've got your merged file and use that one in the middle.
Is there a reason why Tom can't... Oh, yeah, it's the reason why Tom can't see the super chat. Oh, he's found it.
Awesome.
Super
right.
chat icon.
Thank you very much. Okay, so coming up, we've already done this bit once, but it's so good we're going to do it twice, which is Affinity Publisher. Yeah, 2, iPad. Wednesday. Be there. I've put it on at 8, which I know might not be great if you're working. World Cup, what can I say? Couldn't. Well, we were trying to work around the fact that we'd already be through, but we're not. We could be crying in our beer by Wednesday, couldn't we? Could be back before the postcards again as usual. But never mind that, because we're doing Affinity Publisher for iPad. And that has been, I thought I'll do designer and photo first. And it was like, no, you won't. No, I want to see Affinity Publisher on the iPad. So that is what we're going to be doing, which should be entertaining in itself, shouldn't it, Mike? Given the software issues and stuff. But we've given ourselves long enough to, fingers crossed. Hopefully that will all work. Right. Also available already on demand is the Affinity Publisher 2 session that I did, which was the desktop version. So that is available. Might put the link in for that. You also need to be aware. Why am I going backwards? Because it's late. What can I say? Right. You also need to be aware that our after hours advent calendar starts on Thursday. It's 24 days of freebies and gifts. There's usually things like fonts and icons, stock imagery, backgrounds, tips on Excel. I do believe one of the things I've got is a guide to compile in Scrivener. But I can't say any more because it'd be spoiling it, wouldn't it? But it might be, you never know. So you just need to be subscribed to the MacBites mail for that. We are going live again next week, 171 on the 2nd of December, by which time you'll have your workbook. And of course, we are always available on demand. So youtube.com/Elaine Giles or /@Elaine Giles. I've been upgraded, apparently. We have a playlist with all of the after hours going back 4 years. I wonder how long that would take to watch. You need to calculate that in a spreadsheet, Mike. But you will find that at macbites.co.uk/after hours playlist.
I've just made a typo in the chat.
Oh dear, was it a bad one?
I've just put Affinity Publisher 3.
They'll think you know something, Mike. He knows nothing. Ignore him.
No, I put that.
Oh, there's also MacBites that you'll find at MacBites FM. And but for the gas man, there'd have been one, wouldn't there? Yeah. We love you guys. If you love us, there is a like button down there. And we like it almost as much as YouTube like it if you give us a like. So this is my newsletter. This is not the MacBites Advent one. This is mine. This is where you get first dibs on the dates of my upcoming live sessions. So that is elainegiles.com/VIP. This is the one you need for the Advent stuff, which is macbites.co.uk/macbites-mail. We're also available on Slack 24/7. Slack is where we carry on the conversation. It's totally free. Think of it like Twitter, but without the toxicity. That's the plan. So if you've got questions in between shows, go to macbites.co.uk/Slack and join us, or point your camera to that thing and you'll be able to join us. So I will take questions. What questions have we got?
Two in the chat.
Okay.
From Tom. He's looking for recommendations for a dictation software to boost his page count.
Oh, dictation to boost page count.
I can only think of Dragon. It's the only one I know.
It's the only one I know. I know there's some that use Siri, isn't there? The built-in audio stuff. I've never used that. Can't get used to it. Dragon Dictate is the one I've heard of, and there are some people who think it's fabulous. Dave uses it, doesn't he? Dave Allen of Mac 20 Questions. And he's used it for years. But it's got weird licensing. He went mental when I can't say it went subscription, I don't know. But something changed with the licensing and he wasn't pleased. But in terms of the software, apparently it's very good. But I don't personally have any experience of that whatsoever. Drafts. You're right. Drafts does do audio transcription, doesn't it? But again, I think there's a limit on the length of it. I just don't know what it is. I mean, the system itself has voice recognition and you can voice type into anything that supports it. And it would be, quality-wise, it would be as good as the system can support. Lengthwise, I thought there was some kind of restriction on it, but if there is, I don't know what it is. Let us know if anybody's actually tried it.
The other question was, does anybody have a source for cardboard books slipcases, a short run of 25 or 50 units?
Well, hopefully somebody has. We use a printer in the UK. I don't know if they do cardboard slipcases.
I'd have thought Amazon would be a good...
Depends if you want them branded, doesn't it?
True.
If you want them printed, then you're looking at a printer.
Yeah.
The one we use is in the UK, if that's any use to you, but I don't honestly know if they do that. They're a kind of... on their website, they tell you what they do. We go in and choose brochure and then just fill in the blanks. There are many, many places that do that, obviously to varying degrees of satisfaction, but that's not something that I've actually had to print out. So I don't know, but if anybody else does that, let us know.
That's it for questions.
And Paul thought that drafts got round the limit. They could well have done. I know it was introduced not that long ago. I've got a sneaking suspicion I remember Ulysses mentioning something similar. But drafts would be more flexible for that. So if anybody's tried it, let us know. Drafts has the benefit, of course, that you can talk into the watch, doesn't it? I just can't get used to that. There'd be too many ums and ahs. Oh, Peter, I've not forgotten the dirty hack. The dirty hack is adding notes in Publisher. No, I've not forgotten the dirty hack. I needed... Night, Renee. I needed for that a file. I'm almost there with it. So no, yes, it's been postponed, but not permanently.
Be patient, dear boy.
It'll be with you. It'll be there before Christmas. Let's not say which one. No, seriously, it'll be there before Christmas. It will. It's next on my list. So yes, that will be there. Oh, Renee, nicely done. Trying not to get paranoid. Who's parrot while I talked about it?
I'm sort of parrot.
Your thing is you get parrot and you're like, oh, look at that. And you think Para's a destination, not the journey. You have to keep parroting. You have to keep it up to date, Mike.
I've sub-parrot and I think I've gone too far.
Oh, I did have a sub-para that was possibly would blow your mind. That was MacBites, because MacBites is an area. It's an ongoing thing. I would add a show to the projects, but if you think about it, that would really fragment, wouldn't it? MacBites is an area, but you don't want 17 different MacBites projects in the projects because then you're going to have to move them back. So I sub-parrot. The MacBites folder has a para system all of its own. You can you can do whatever you like. It's just doing it with intention. It's knowing that, my data can only be, it could be on one of 20 drives, but it's going to be in the same folder on the 20 drives. So I know exactly where to look for it. And for everything else, there's search. So Para's one of those things that particularly if you did it the way I did, which was I read all those blog posts. And after number 4, my eyes were rolling. And I thought, I'll leave it. And I did. And then when I came back to it, I thought you really need to grasp this. And it's actually a lot simpler than you would think. And once you've got OneDrive parrot, that's it. You have to parrot everywhere. Because you look at it and you think, that's not organised, I'll parrot it. Hence having that little zip thing. All that zip file was a zip file of 5 empty folders, an inbox, and PARA. That was it. So I do that 2 ways. I have a renamer for it. So if the files already exist, but they're just not named right, then I will rename them. And the other one is the zip thing. So whenever I get a new drive, I just sling that zip file onto it, unzip it, and I'm done. Para's fabulous. Parrot is a bird. I think that's a rewatch from the beginning. Oh, that's chicken. Do you mean chicken? You could well mean chicken. Oh my. Right, I just missed Tracy there. Yes, she's confirming that drafts hacked the limit and got over it. That means Apple are on their case, isn't it? And they'll put them back. Oh dear. Oh, Peter, I can't imagine talking straight into Affinity Publisher, but, I'm sure some could. Tom says, I want to thank the group for making this newbie feel very welcome. You're very welcome, Tom. They're a friendly bunch, aren't they? They're lovely. So, hence Slack. That's where we talk between shows. Right. Jamie says, you're curious about Wolfie. Was he in the moon vectors or did you make them? I think I had the moon and I think I changed Wolfie. Yeah, the idea with Wolfie was his head looked like Maya. So, I think I made some changes to Wolfie. And the only reason that we used that was, we had an idea for what to call the one live show we were doing. This is back in 2018. And it was going to be MacBites After Hours or MacBites After Midnight. But it wasn't actually after midnight. So we went for MacBites After Hours. And to indicate it was after, after dark, we went for the Moon and Wolfie. And he stayed with us ever since. And Kim is determined to get a T-shirt or a sweatshirt, aren't you, Kim? So we're working on it. Okay, so do we have any more questions?
I don't think so.
Don't want to miss any questions if we've got questions. But if you have questions, you can always get them to me via the contact form on my website or a comment on the YouTube videos or whatever. Oh, Jamie likes him. He's very handsome. He is, isn't he? He looks like Mayor. Except when PowerPoint puts a box on his head. I actually presented once and didn't notice until I went live. Mind you, that GTD video, I realised there was a spelling mistake on one of the slides.
Oh.
And I thought, why wasn't that underlined and flashing red at me? And why didn't Mike notice? And it wasn't flagged up as a spelling mistake, but it was. So bad words were said as I corrected it, but I can't correct it in the video. So let's see, if you watch it, don't read it too carefully because it's a spelling mistake. Oh, honestly, terrible. Yes, Kim is still there. Right, well, I will sort that. Just need time, and I need the gas main got rid of. I mean, honestly, you look out of the window and the entire street is still full of holes. I mean, the poor dog, I don't know how anybody's managing in a wheelchair or with a pram, because you've got 3 inches to get past on the pavement. And because it's raining so badly, the gutters get full and then you've got 6 inches of water to wade through. So yeah, it's not been great. But Mike said, and I was really peeved over that the next road along, Mike said, oh, they're finishing today, officially here. And I said, yeah, as you look out the window. But the next road along has been cancelled, apparently, which is not on. That's not on. Why have we had all the grief and they haven't? So she's thankful they just haven't blown up the house. So are we, Kim. It's been horrific. People are actually... Mike decided... I bet you regret this. But when it was first mentioned... And Mike said, oh, they've got to come in and do things. And I said, what do you mean they've got to come in? Don't be ridiculous. I've lived here 40 years. They've never come in. Yes, they've got to come in. And Mike gets on these forums where people are saying, like, they're not coming in here without a warrant, which was pretty much how I felt. And it was like, can you stop them coming in? And I said to Mike, I bet you can't, because it's a safety thing. But then how can they get in if you won't let them in? And I think that's what slowed them down. They're 6 months behind already. And it's probably people that won't let them in. And then they can't finish that road, can they? Unless they can get them all in. So, no, that's why we said, well, you can come in, but, on the proviso that you wear these masks. And the masks that the guys came in with, until the engineer, Woodbine man, Mike said there were these big industrial things where they look like something off, like Darth Vader. They look like Darth Vader, didn't they? So I was quite all right with that. Oh, and they took the boots off as well, which is quite bizarre. But they've moved on from here, but not outside. So if they come knocking, they're not coming in. Let's say that. I've had enough. I have had enough. But I do worry when I look outside. And when I'm working at like 2 o'clock in the morning, you'll also find noise outside. And what's happening is somebody's moving the wheelbarrow or something. So it's only a matter of time before somebody does something. But hopefully by the time that happens, they'll have moved on somewhere else. I'll keep you updated. It's time for them to change it, Tracy, is what they've said. The pipes last 30 years. But like I said, I've lived here since 1979 and they've not touched the pipes. But it's one of these situations where it's like, oh, all we have to do is pass this pipe through. It'll be 5 minutes. So they start pushing this pipe through and it was like an episode of Call the Midwife. Push, push, I'm pulling it. Oh, honestly, what was it like, Mike? It was like a comedy. They couldn't get this pipe in, it wouldn't bend. So then they're saying to Mike, can you give us some boiling water? And I'm thinking, yeah, and some towels next, hence midwife. They poured 8 litres of boiling water down this pipe and it still wouldn't bend. So, you know, like a workman does. Oh, if we can't do that, we'll have to do it this way. Well, the alternative was, he said, well, we'll just dig up the path. Well, Mike went white. I'm thinking, you're kidding. The internet comes up there. No, you're going nowhere near the internet cable. Well, we had a full chapter and verse over what they do with the path. Anyway, he said, well, I'll try another way first. So him and his mate then got another cable. They actually did get the pipe through. And I'm sitting there praying and I'm thinking, they've done it. Fantastic. And he said, I've got it. I've got it. And then he said, oh, no, it snapped. And I'm like, you idiot. Anyway, after that, they had to take that one out. And then they went back and they tried a different way. And they got in without digging the path up. But you can see how horrific it is out there already without having your front path dug up as well. I mean, I remember what it was like when they put the internet in. We had to lock my dad in the front room, didn't we? Because he'd be out there trying to assist. So, yeah, it's not being good, but we're hanging in there. We're hanging in there. We'll see what next week brings. Oh, Tracy, I can't be doing with Call the Midwife. It freaks me out. Absolutely freaks me out. I just have this vision of, like, hot water and towels. And that was what Adrian wanted, hot water and towels, for him and his mate, Tommy. And I thought, I said, are they birthing something? And with the noises that they were making, it did sound very much like that. So hopefully it'll all be over at some point. Right, okay then, we're going to head off and have something to eat. It'll be fabulous. And we'll be back with you next week. Don't, of course, forget Wednesday. Affinity Publisher for iPad. You know you want to. But until then, I will say good night from me.
And good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.